That's why I dunk on these fools constantly, bro. Because they couldn't organize a shag in a brothel half the time. You are Italian, and you are like the VRL Spain.
No, I'm Vietnamese.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Oh, he says such a disaster.
Can we say how stupid you have to be to get caught cheating in an open qualifier?
You have to hit.
Do you get caught? How the
In all chat.
You know, I understand there's like a real demand for content all the time. Trust me, I come from the Overwatch community, right? I know what it's like to starve for just a little bit of content. So, What's up, gamers, and welcome back to VALORANTing here for the week of the 30th of January. We are a month into this year of VALORANT, and already we've had crazy shit go down. In fact, we've had that through most of January as well. Thank God someone's here to talk about it and get mad about it occasionally, except for Vansilli, who's here with us. What's up, Vance? How you doing?
Good, man. You know what? Good news is I stopped playing Vampire Survivor. You know what I got into now? I'm actually doing Minesweeper 500 mines, and then if I could beat that, it's going to be Minesweeper 2,000 mines, because I've been watching Ethos' stream on the past few days, and he got me back on the Minesweeper grind.
Can you explain to me what is the allure of Minesweeper? Just lay it out for me here.
I guess it's just the satisfaction of being able to clear all the boards and just demining all the mines, man.
Yeah?
It's literally what Minesweeper
Have you
is.
tried cleaning your fucking kitchen? Because it's probably the same, motherfucker.
No, I always lose at that one.
Isn't
Actually, it's always clean because I always order out anyways.
Oh my god, dude. You know, I found that gamifying my life has made things much easier. For example, I don't do cardio anymore. I play Beat Saber. Fuck it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let us. So here's what I'm gonna do, fans. I'm gonna get your dog to do a bunch of poops in the kitchen. And you're gonna fucking minesweep that shit. You're gonna clean your damn kitchen, and you're gonna work your way around the poos. You know what I mean? Gamifying your existence.
I have Ring Fit Adventure.
Like there's easier ways.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know how hard it is for a dog to
Don't
poop.
knock it till you try it, man. Just like Vampire Survivor, I'm pretty sure that once you try it, you're gonna get hooked.
And
No,
then
I mean, I saw
stop
Quick
playing
Shot.
a few days
Quick
later.
Shot was playing it as well. He was really into Vampire Survivor, and that man comes from COD 4 Pro Mod, so I know he's got good taste. Mitch, how you doing, man?
Hey, not too bad, not too bad. One of those days, isn't it? We get up, we do nothing, and then wait for Valorant to start again. We get some VCT Game Changer stuff going on here in Europe, but other than that, things are quiet. Just
What
chill.
do you mean quiet? I thought things were getting spicy on the
Things are
Twitter
quiet.
feed with you this morning.
No, things are quiet. It's a nice.
Mitch is only
relaxing
talking
time.
about Tier 1 regions,
What's
fans. All right?
What's up? Yeah. What?
He's only
What?
talking about Tier 1 regions,
Yeah,
homie,
look,
you know what I mean?
we have our
True.
we have our coaching things here in the Tier 1 region as well.
Oh, yeah,
so it's a universal problem right now.
I just love how your screen gets automatically pixelated when you have to start to talk about EU, so that like you stay anonymous. Just with your hot takes, because NA is going to win champions for 2020.
Okay, dude. All right, so look, outside of that, on today's show, we want to talk about VCT NA because North America can't. Sorry,
Face of competitive integrity.
Oh man.
No, North America have a tournament without massive drama challenge. Impossible. Yeah, we're going to talk about VCT NA qualifiers. Obviously, they're important, right? These open qualifiers are really crucial. We'll talk about who made it, who didn't, winners, losers, and the good, bad, and ugly, I guess. Then we'll talk about VRL Spain. I'm just getting filled on this at the start of the show. There's a little bit of controversy happening in that sort of sub-challengers league that Europe has, this regionalized league, VRL, especially Spain. We'll talk about that, talk about the ins and outs of this particular situation surrounding a team of Italian players. And then we'll talk about some of the developer updates sort of later on in the show. There was a patch that dropped today. It wasn't huge, but we'll discuss a little bit of the vision going forward for the dev team. Aaron Donlan obviously came forward and spoke to that earlier on. All right, let's get this started. Let's talk about VCT. Yeah, I fucking did it. Why do we have a beep? Why do we have a beep sound?
Because you didn't make it last week.
I did. Mitch, that backed me up. I
Beep's
fucking
supposed
made
to
it
be a
last
reward.
week.
But you
I
did.
mean-
You did make it. You actually, I think you were under time last week, which is why you didn't get the beep. And now we have the beep.
I mean, everybody's got to start checking the VODs on YouTube or Spotify or whatever.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I'm pretty sure you didn't pass
Go
that fucking
subscribe
thing.
on YouTube
Fine,
and make
fine.
sure that I beat the buzzer last week, motherfuckers. Get there. Okay. We're going to bring onto the show here a couple people to help us talk through VCT NA because Mitch is going to eat some spaghetti or some shit. We're going to bring an aEvilCat and a CoolCat on the show. Let's make some noise, ladies and gentlemen, for aEvilCat and Rivington the third. What's up, guys? Thanks for joining us on the show.
Smello.
Hello, hello.
Great to have you here, guys. Look, huge weekend. I know we're all pretty relieved to see that some of those sort of last minute changes came in for the VCT NA. We were a little bit worried about, just how hard it would be for some of these teams to qualify and how easy it might be to sort of fall out in like the early rounds. I don't know. I'd love to get your thoughts on just those changes first before we jump in, because I don't think I've ever heard of a round of 32 being, was it double elimination from round of 32 onwards, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was a
heard of
pivot
that
that I like, right? Because previously it was single elim all the way through. So it was like this complete gauntlet. And we'd just get like Sentinels losing to a PPG. And sure, they lost the BO3. That's their fault. Get better. But I think adding a little extra security for the teams who have made it through that initial gauntlet is good. I'm still a big open qualifier fan. I've talked about it before even on this show, that I think it's great that we have a system where the underdog teams, where you can get like any 5 friends together, play and make it in if you're good enough. So I think it's really found a good in between, and I'm pretty happy with the format.
That's how we get more bait academies in the end.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, we only had only 4 teams could get through, and I think we were all sort of speculating early in the week. There was like a ton of hype for Akrew, right? People must have come out of scrims with this team or whatever, and a lot of people saying like, I think these guys are going through. Let's have a look at the brackets here now as well. I'll give you guys an overview if you didn't manage to catch the action over the weekend. So a big bracket again. Round of 32 onwards was double elimination, so kind of insane. Your beloved Akrew fall to V1 here, but so version 1 and XSET get through here in that upper bracket. XSET, again, this year they haven't had to worry about lower bracket runs. They were the kings of that one here, but this time around they get through on their own. So Rise and the Guard get relegated to that lower bracket and still have to fight their way through. The Guard make it through. Not easy as well. They had to go up against Akrew, who just down ESM 2-0, right? So we're already starting to form a bit of a hierarchy in this region. And this NRG squad, right, who had to run through the lower brackets a bit from round 2 onwards here, of course, with Hazed being added to this team quite recently, and they get through. So very quickly, look at this. Let's talk about the conspicuous absentees from qualification here. Let's talk about the teams that were kind of shocked about not making it, gang.
Honestly, I think TSM is one of the big ones up there, but also not, because it's still a team that's been trying to find a groove. It's like there's a squad of teams that are top orgs rather with these teams that just cannot find a way to at least close out a game, or what their groove is, or what their identity is, which becomes one of the biggest things. And then, we just play off protocols, we do this, and you see them get dismantled by a team that's just hungry, or a team that's just vibing. They're not really running too many strats. They just seem on board with each other and how they peak, how they play. And to see TSM fall to that over and over again, especially like with Akrew, they got strangled out by Akrew. Like that was just a suffocation game. TSM was trying to hit at the last 20 seconds. They couldn't get in, and we thought they would be dictating games going through this open qualifier.
Yeah, first of all, it feels really surreal that I am the B-roll and I'm also the one talking. This is getting a little too deep. Yeah, I think other teams that I felt like were gonna do a lot better than they did was Gen.G. They got knocked out. New roster, they import Rhyme from EU. Honestly, we're looking all right in some of their opening games. Then they get knocked down and they just kind of fumble, lose a map to Renegades, which, let's be honest, Renegades are a fine team, but Gen.G should not be losing a map to them. Yep. And then they get knocked down 2-1 to Soniqs. That was a big disappointment for me. For a Gen.G roster that has so many issues, I was hoping that this rebuild would help. And I know, blah, blah, blah. It's their first tournament together. It's fine. But this is when it mattered. I wanted to see more out of them. And honestly, similar fate for FaZe Clan, right? They make some big changes, and then they're losing to the Pioneers really early in that lower bracket.
I do have to go the opposite direction though for Soniqs. So even though that they lost early, they were actually impressive looking at that team overall, because they were a team that were using actually a lot of Viper going into the VCT's open qualifier. So Iron was playing like Viper on Haven. So they were playing.
Was fun to watch.
Yeah, they were playing that on Haven. They were playing Viper on Ascent. And then on maps where usually you're used to seeing a Viper, which is, for example, Bind, they don't play any Viper at all. So I think what was cool from the Soniqs is that they came out with a brand new strat book where a lot of teams wouldn't be used to playing against. Right?
Yeah, and
probably
they were
that's
really,
why they got upset.
They were really breached up too. Like a lot of teams have been adding breach into the mix, but I think Soniqs was one of the ones who integrated it the best, especially in that series against Gen.G. They didn't play Jet at all, right? They didn't play duelists at all in their comp. It was just Mini on his chamber, and he was filling into that role. So it's not the flash and dash, it's not the old stuff we're used to with Breach, but what they were pulling out was really creative, and it felt like they were setting Mini up for success, which in a way is what I've wanted to see out of chamber. That I think most teams are playing it like how T1 is playing it, where it's basically, oh, our Killjoy player likes to op sometimes, he'll just keep playing it as if it's a Killjoy and get funky with the op on occasion. Whereas this team is doing something really unique, getting aggressive, kind of playing their own game, and I love that from them. Soniqs has always been a team that likes to innovate, and I think that this meta plays really well to their strengths, and I finally feel like we're justified in a no duelist comp because the holes are really well filled in by this KO, which I know you'll be in love with.
Of course,
Vans,
with
because
Jason.
they played it on every map for Jason, who is amazing at the agent, and then also that chamber for Mini. It looked good. It doesn't change the fact for me that I was underwhelmed with Gen.G, but I don't want to take away from Soniqs because they played some really cool Valorant.
Exactly. Good fragging coming in from Miniature, especially when he was known to be more of like a rifler for other teams that he tried out for. And also Jason. Those two players are both American players, right? So you don't have a full Australian roster with this team anymore. And I think that this fits pretty well with the whole roster. I'm actually really excited to see what Soniqs going to bring into Open Qualifiers #2. But yeah, I think one of the, maybe not the most disappointing ones though for the runs is probably looking back at the TSM. I do agree with Riv, where, you know, it looked pretty good. It's nice to see Corey on Jet. It's nice to see that Wardell's still able to op. I like the strategy that they were implying, that they were deploying for TSM, was to just run these orbs super early game to allow Wardell to get the Dilda Fuss as soon as possible, and then finally get the economy pretty much balanced throughout the whole half, so that Wardell could always do something with an ultimate with the Dilda Fuss or with an operator in itself. Although. Yeah, exactly. But although I feel that in the end, TSM kind of like still pigeonholes themselves into roles, right? Because there was maybe only one instance where Wardell went back to a Gen on Icebox, and Riv, you could tie on to that. You were talking about how Wardell was like super tired. He was like, "Fuck, just let me play Jet for that game." It was like the third game of the night.
As much as he was being serious or joking, like that morning after he was on stream, like it was like 6 a.m. here, so whatever for him. And they were like, "Why'd you pick Jet after having Chamber?" And he's like, "Man, I was so tired. I just said, can I pick Jet and then play?" It was a big mistake.
Then they lost,
and then he kept playing solo queue, and I was like, "Yeah,
that's it." So then,
or he sat in the lobby like, "Hey Matt, what? You selected the wrong agent, mate." He's like, "No,
I'm good.
I'm fine, mate. It's fine."
And that's the thing. So then, like, if the goal right now for TSM is to consistently keep Wardell on Chamber, when you also have like a Corey that's probably consistently on Jet, or for example Raze if they're going to play split, are they still trying to pigeonhole themselves into different into the same roles where they were having an issue finding that identity in the past? So I hope that it develops a little bit better for Open Qualifier #2, but at least in the first look, great. Did they qualify? No. And did they qualify because of a technicality against T1, which we'll talk about later? Maybe. Because T1 definitely looked better. But what would T1 look like if their coach was an IGLing? That's another question. But yeah, we'll have to see.
Okay, so before we get on to all this nonsense, do you think that they just ran out of time, this TSM team? Because before this, their last official was in August. This team had a huge amount of time in the lead up to this, and we were talking about it. It felt like so many NA rosters were like cramming their homework last minute before the exam, try and get their ducks in a row before VCT. Does this team just need more time? Because as far as I can tell, with this roster, they've had barely any.
Yeah, I think it's for a lot of these teams, to be honest with you. And we mentioned this when we were looking at the Open Qualifier #1, because on paper, everybody was sure that it was going to be, okay, XSET and Rise, just due to their performances from LCQ in 2021. And then also that XSET has the addition of Cryocells into that roster, easy peasy. But then we saw the results for Rise looking later on into the brackets, and every other team, because they had last-minute changes, last-minute roster changes, and only particularly potentially 9 days of practice, then it was going to be like just back and forth in terms of results. You know?
Let me ask this then. TSM, they have had plenty of time, like you said, to build the roster, but there were so many Mickey Mouse tournaments between then and now, right? There was that Knight's $25,000 one. There was NSGs every week.
Yep.
There was the NSG LCQ. There was
$25,000, $30,000. That's what the CDO like kickoff event had as prize pool.
Yeah, there are Mickey Mouse tournaments.
And we
that
had
have
agent
massive
bets for
prize
that
pool.
event.
And it was a fun event, and a lot of good teams were playing. There was an NSG Weekly that had XSET, that had NRG. I mean, the smaller tournaments are stacked because these tier 1 teams, or whatever you want to call them, realize that VCT is not enough practice. Because if they're just playing VCT, they will get upset by a team like the Guard, by a team like Akrew, who is grinding every single week and playing these tournaments. I swear, this is something I whine about every time I come on a podcast. But there are it's not like EU. We have so many third-party tournaments. There are no longer restrictions. Teams can just go play them. Why is TSM not playing them? Their academy team, their fucking academy team is playing those tournaments and farming them.
2021. This happened last year with Luminosity and Immortals, and they started shitting on everyone because they were the ones playing the Winter Championships and stuff.
It makes no sense. Anyone can play in the NSG events, and literally, it is such good practice for longevity, especially for a lot of these teams that bring in like a new young player. Like, I don't know, I just don't understand it. Like, I think like even directly in the org, TSM Academy is such a success story in way of playing these smaller events, in that they have improved so much from being a pretty mediocre squad to honestly being one of the most solid tier 2 teams just from grinding every single week. Scrims are great, but it will never be the same. And I think TSM could have been so much better if only they had just had the right practice.
And I bet, and on top of that, you see with the Crew and other teams that they feel as they're tier 2 and TSM may be looking for better scrims, those other lower teams are probably scrimming each other a bunch.
Yeah.
And having a lot more reps, a lot more practice, defining the identity that they need to have. And when you are a tier 1 team, you're thinking, well, we need to tier 1 or very close to or right next to. And a lot of the other teams are
look
just
at this.
playing.
If you're T1 in this, you get to play X-Flick Baiters, which is one of the better tier 2 teams. You get to play Pioneers, you get to play the Guard. Like, you're playing 3 really solid BO3s, and maybe you have to stomp your way through groups, but you still can learn something from that. Like, look at Cloud9's main team. Cloud9's main team has been playing a ton of these small tournaments, and they've been stomping their way through. They've been memeing it a little bit, but they're ensuring that they stay up to date, that they work together well in the officials, because there is sometimes that panic moment where, hey, it's an official, something's changed. So that's just what I want to see from everyone, really.
Yeah. The only the only thing that I could maybe defend as to why we don't see, or the only thing that I could see where we don't see TSM play in these Mickey Mouse tournaments is because of the academy teams that these teams have, right? So BBG Academy, TSM Academy, T1 Academy, etc.
But if they're an academy team, the main team should be getting Preston. That's an org decision that I think is just straight up wrong. If they want to prioritize this as their main team, they should be treating it as such.
The only thing in this is that the academy teams that are getting experience from these tier 2 tournaments, or even having a coach that's going to try to drill the academy teams to use strategies that they played against in tier 2 tournaments, and also, for example, how does Gambit play? Let's take this academy team and run this Gambit play anti-eco and see how our team runs against it, so that they have a way to practice different types of playstyle versus different teams that's drilled by the coaches through the academy team. And then they don't play because they don't want to show how much they've evolved. But you can also see
have 12 rosters in these Mickey Mouse tournaments.
Yes, and I don't think there's a rule against it. I think that you can have I'm actually not going to say anything. I'm pretty sure you can. We would obviously have to look at the rules to 100% confirm, but I'm pretty sure you can, because I swear we've seen this before. And even if you can't, even if depending on the tournament there's a rule against it, just cuck your academy team. Your priority should be your main team.
Yeah, that's it. I agree. I think in the end, like the strategy that I just explained could be a possibility as to why we don't see teams like TSM playing these tournaments. We could already see, though, within the results of the VCTs, that maybe actually having them play against the actual teams would be better experiences than maybe the strats ran through and drilled by the academy team with the coach.
Let's move on, because one team we saw at LCQ that was pretty impressive, even under the conditions of, like, I don't know, having their players have to play from a hotel and all that bullshit that went down. Oh, fucking drama in NA. It's just insane. But Rise struggled here. I mean, this is a team that we were starting to think was like, outside of those top 4 Instalock teams, your C9s, your Sentinels, your Envy, all that this is like a legitimate team, a force to be reckoned with in North America. And they started off pretty well, of course, as you probably expect in a tournament of this nature, right? They get through Soniqs, they get through T1, And then they end up going up against V1 and they lose. And that's their upper bracket journey. And then they fall down. So I want to talk a little bit about this team here because such explosive, potential with players like sort of Shanks on your roster. This team is kind of filthy. Derek's just nasty on that Sova. But Rise probably don't get as far as we maybe expect from them. Even with the caliber of teams that they're shoulder to shoulder with, we expect more from this roster, I think, after how they finished last year.
Yeah. First thing I could add is there was a tweet from their coach, Anger, on the 30th with the feels bad man. And then when we're actually casting these matches and we're watching these matches and you're going into agent selects for these teams, you notice that Rise actually doesn't have a coach in the slot for the agent pickups. And I think one of those things where Rise were doing pretty good with is, they always lost the first map but did well in the rest of the series. But there was a lot of these moments where they were able to turn things around off timeouts, try to identify what was going on and or whatnot. And when you have 5 players where nothing was working in their qualifying matchup and they didn't really have a way to adapt, there was no opportunities for somebody that has like a bird's eye view of the 5 players playing and figure out what was really the mistakes or what was really going on and what do you try to micro adapt on the fly to try to come back into this game. And I think that was a huge pain point into Rise's qualifying run, but also at the same time they just weren't fucking hitting their shots either.
Maybe they should hire David Denis. I think someone suspended him, so maybe they get him in the roster.
Oh, wow.
That could work well.
Ooh.
You know, no, I'm gonna fucking contain myself because we're gonna get to that. Okay, so let's talk about that. Then by comparison, then we should probably take a moment to. Are we gonna talk about NRG later on? I think we are actually. So we don't need to circle around that too much. But they obviously lose to NRG in the lower bracket. So let's get on with this then. Let's open this Pandora's box and discuss T1 getting disqualified against TSM after winning the first map of that series, split, if I'm not mistaken, fairly convincingly. Can we? Okay, let's try and cover this. Obviously, this is how the map went. Steel had a pretty good first map. He even tweeted the scoreboard like anyone gave a shit after the fact. Somebody give me the high level.
Can we high level, low, any level? Can we just realize the fact that this team is, the cartoons where somebody has a storm cloud over their head and wherever they go? Yep. That T1 has never been able to escape the storm cloud since they've entered Valorant.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a coincidence either. Like, it's not necessarily a disaster so much like an unpredictable disaster as it is like they make some pretty shitty choices at a managerial level that lead to a higher rate of these issues, let's say.
That's why I dunk on these fools constantly, bro. Because they couldn't organize a fucking shag in a brothel half the time. Wow. Can we discuss, though, outside of me just being mad at these cunts, can we just discuss the facts of this situation, right? Yeah. To help me understand. So I guess we have the ruling. Yeah?
Yeah.
Let's just bring out the ruling. Let's go from the top down.
Hit it.
And work our way here. So T1 forfeited their match against TSM due to violating rules regarding unauthorized communication during a match. The Comp Ops team was made aware of evidence of a T1 coach providing instruction to T1 players. Now, as the coach, the head coach, we'll get to that, while their match against TSM was in progress. Essentially, this got typed in all chat instead of team chat. So TSM could fucking see it, and they were tweeting about it, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, there was it was a fucking absolute circus on Twitter at the time. So,
hey man,
they forfeit. Yeah, help sewers, right? So they forfeit the entire match, as far as I understand.
It helped for a lot of impressions on the Twitter feed yesterday, or over this ruling. But yeah,
ratios be had.
Yeah, and it was long story short, fucking coach shift entered, probably wrote out help sewers, which is that meme, and then even if the first map finished and T1 won, it was only until like mid second game on Icebox, where it's like, okay, now suddenly the stream goes into like be right back technical difficulties for like half an hour, and then suddenly the stream just ended with a not like this fucking emote. That was fucking hilarious how that actually ended up that way with the how you end up the stream. But yeah, and then now Riot went into the investigation to see what was going on, and then definitely there was some breaking into the competitive integrity with David Denis. Unfortunately, MM1ing in this matchup, and then forcing T1 to get disqualified.
MM2, bro.
Yeah, you got to stay in the MM2.
So I mean, essentially, T1 basically say they take pride in fostering a culture of integrity in both our players and coaches. You hired a cheater. You hired a cheater. You hired a cheater. You hired a known cheater to be coaching your fucking team, bro.
Not David Denis. We're talking about
The other one, their assistant coach, the fucking
Forgot his name.
PUBG cheater.
Yeah.
The key part being that he wasn't even punished either. This dude literally was caught for cheating in PUBG when he was basically finished his PUBG career. He was dog shit at PUBG anyways, went on to Apex, and I remember that fucking video. This was like my first impression of T1 aside from a friend of mine who played on them, and then from that point it just went to shit, because they were like, yeah, so you obviously you paid a lot, you know, you suffered a lot for all of this, but people said you cheated, people messaged you, and you even found it hard to find an org when you were competing in Apex. It's like, the fucker was still competing though, dude. He was still competing all those years, and then he turns around and goes, I've done my time. I found it hard to find an org this one time. Now I'm ready to start a new league.
I've done my time.
Like,
there should never fucking be a time to be done. Don't cheat.
Agreed.
Disgusting.
Even if there was, right? When you look at pieces of shit like Biggie that we have in EU who get like their 9 month or year-long ban, you have to serve that ban. You don't, you know, get banned in CS and then suddenly move to XL and start playing for them. It shouldn't work like that. But in this situation, the glaring thing for me right away was like, okay, the rule is a problem. The rule that we cannot have coaches playing or we cannot have coaches talking online is a problem. We could never enforce that in CS. When you have 128 teams, every team has a different Discord or TeamSpeak or some way of communicating. To monitor all of those for an open qual, impossible. So
Wait,
now
first
you
of
end
all,
up.
Can we say how fucking stupid you have to be to get caught cheating in an open qualifier?
You have to hit like.
How the fuck do you get caught? How the
You
fuck?
type in all chat.
I don't condone cheating. Cheating is wrong. Coaches need to get their shit together. But it would be so easy to cheat. Like
can you
comms aren't monitored.
You imagine that warm rush he felt as soon as he had entered and realized it was an all chat.
Oh,
like
Jesus Christ.
It makes me hurt inside.
Yeah, honestly, okay. So I come from CS:GO, but before I came into this game, and the coaching scene there is a fucking disaster. Everyone is cheating. Everyone is cheating with the coach bug cam in this game. In that game, it has just been a consistent issue, and now the coach role is just getting absolutely neutered. Now we come into here, coaches are starting to cheat. Like, first of all, I'm just really fucking disappointed because. Honestly, coaching is a role that can provide so much value and can be so good in esports, but fuckers just want to ruin it to try and get like some tiny advantage in game, which is just cringe to say the least.
Like, look at the rules here. The rules state clearly, during the match, the communication by a player shall be limited to other players on the team. Players can only communicate with other players. Coaches cannot communicate for any reason. Let's now have a look. David Denis, like just now, I think has posted. He has made an apology, right?
Oh.
And he's sort of okay. So this is important. So first and foremost, I want to make it clear I regret my actions. I didn't represent our players, T1 or our fans. You represented T1 exactly how they've represented themselves since the fucking beginning, bro. You are emblematic of everything that's fucking wrong with this thing. You are literally the plot of Robot, the fucking sentient AI that eventually takes over and starts to fucking control everything. Guys, like obviously you're a behavioral coach, mental coach, whatever. Then you decided you're a head coach, right? Then you decided you could fucking coach a team in Valorant, and then you decided you could tell them how to fucking play, bro. This is T1 to the T. And he basically said like Riot investigated me. So in the logs, it showed all the communication I had. This communication consisted of encouraging / supportive statements and general reminders. It doesn't matter. You can't communicate with them at all, motherfucker. It doesn't matter what you're saying, bro. You cannot type to them. You cannot talk to them. You are literally just admitting to doing more to break the rules.
Well, you have to.
It was already known.
You have to, because people are saying in the TLs, because we had no context of what was going on except for the help sewers, and we don't even know if that was a meme or not. But now this adds clarification that the cheating doesn't only go for one single instance of a message of again MM1s. Exactly. So it was something that was continuous. So it's good that he actually lays out the whole context that cheating did happen throughout the whole game for this series.
Cheating happened with the one message. What's the difference? You broke the rules. Well,
yes. But
I
it
think
also shows how heavy the punishment is, because a lot of people as well, coming out from the official statement from Riot, for example, was saying it was a kind of vague. The lines were saying, hey, he broke this guideline, because of this T1's now disqualified. But everybody
Right.
was up in arms to be like, why? Like all he did was say help Suarez at MM1, and only one message should disqualify the whole team, because people are also saying if he only said help Suarez once by accident, or whatever the context was back then shouldn't they just forfeit the map and not the series, right? So now being able to say this from David Denis adds to the whole context that maybe it was potentially not only in this series, but it could have been for whole of T1 throughout the whole fucking tournament too.
Let me just
at that
say,
point.
Riot gave such a light punishment for this, in my opinion. I
I mean,
think
look
that
at what they do in the EMEA. They don't fucking give punishments for it. Like, we have coaches talking, and it's just like, hey, you maybe lose a map in a series you're gonna win easily anyway.
in my opinion, if you're a coach and
always
you're
been
cheating
weak.
anyway, you should just get a life ban. See you later. Go
Sure.
somewhere else. Go fucking play PUBG again. I don't know.
The one caveat I would give to that is that right now we have such a weak face with the players and teams that people genuinely don't think about the weight of the rules a lot of the time. Now, don't get me
This is
wrong.
true.
I am 100% behind. If you cheat, fuck you. Get out of our game. You don't
Yeah.
deserve to be here.
Yep.
You're not a
Bye-bye.
competitor. You're a piece of shit. But I will say that things also need to be done better from the perspective of coming to players and just being like, the rules are not to be fucked around with. If you,
Correct.
like, we used to have at Copenhagen Games, the story I'd always tell is how they made Navi when they were late because they went to get McDonald's because they were the big shots at the tournament. And they rolled up 5 minutes, 10 minutes late and were like ready to set up their keyboards on the stage. And the tournament just went, fuck you doing? Like, they were playing against some random BYOPC team that was they were gonna get stomped, you know? The tournament were like, no, you forfeit. You weren't here on time. Unlucky. From that point forward, nobody fucked around at Copenhagen Games. People didn't come late. Literally one team did it, which was Forza the year I was there, and they got fucking booted as well. There's no messing around. You have to have airtight rules like that. Otherwise, people exploit them. That's how you end up with, like, the thing that I've been kind of going crazy about is with our coaching system right now, you cannot enforce it. You cannot make sure that teams do not communicate, which means that if you follow the rules, like in this example, if somebody didn't hit shift enter, TSM follow the rules. T1 don't follow the rules. T1 gain an advantage, and TSM get nothing for following the rules. It's almost, again, without you practically turning yourself in. If you don't tweet a VOD of your coach going, hey guys, help out on series, or shift enter, it's never going to get found out. So to me, in open quals, like, until you can have an admin on their team speak with them and someone on the server watching, they're allowed to talk. That's what we used to do in CS.
You
It
have to
made
share
sense.
because they can still whisper. Then there's a lot of avenues.
Yeah, there's so many things.
Honestly,
WhatsApp, you know.
I
Like, so
think
many things like that.
Mitch has a really good point. I wouldn't hate to see that. Hate to see this allowed, but I think for now, when we're talking about our current situation, our current rule set, this guy needed to get punished. He needed to get hung out to dry and just be made an example. And I think that's what Riot did with him.
Correct.
Giving the entire team a forfeit. They can still go play Open Qualifier 2. They're not out of it. They're fine. They can still make it into VCT.
Yeah.
Honestly, Riot could have been completely justified in doing much more to this team, but I think still just getting him out of here. T1 is trying to dry their hands of him. They have him suspended right now. So I think that this is a good step, but I agree with you. I would love to see in the future just don't give a shit if coaches talk, because at least then the playing field is leveled, and then just get hard ass with
I think
it
it's the
once you're
opposite.
in.
It's
I think it's the
unenforceable,
opposite.
right?
I think it's the opposite. I think it's more in the rule set, in the rule book, that it has to be clear, because the infraction that David Denis did, either it's 1, 10, 100, how many times, just like Emmanuel was saying in chat here, he did cheat, and it should be in the rule book to say, if you do cheat 1 time, 5 times, or whatever, and you get caught, then you're fucked. These are the punishments.
How is
But
it
we-
not clear though? It strictly says, like, there's a punishment guide in there, and it says specifically you cannot communicate outside. I don't know how much clearer that rule could get.
But because right now where it gets difficult is, what is the severity of the punishment?
Yeah,
right?
what is the
So
repercussion that comes
for
along
one
with
team it could be a
X?
map, for one team it could be a series, for one team it could be a whole event, for one team it could
That's
be
fair.
a year. We don't know that yet, right? And this brings me back to the ruling of what happened to fucking Vikings and Ascent on fucking Breeze. The fucking camera that came out with one rule that came out, and then it was like, oh well, you know what? Maybe we'll replay the map. Oh, you know what? Maybe we'll replay the map, but give 7 rounds over to Ascent. in a 7-0 and good luck, have fun, and then they almost fucking lost that map. If it would have been like, hey, you cheated with an illegal camera that was already clearly written in the rule books that you use this camera, then technically you forfeit the map, you forfeit the series, or you forfeit the event. Who knows? It just has to be written so that it's clear, set in stone. And while that happens, people may still cheat because you can't regulate everything. But if it does happen and you get caught and it's in the rule book that this is the punishment, then that's where you exercise the right, correct, black and white ruling of what happens if you cheat. I think that's what's missing so far too. And that's how it's also going to help a little bit more regulate the amount of games that are going at once, that you can't be in all of these comms at once. It will happen. But if you get caught, you're fucked because it's
I think we go back to I think it was Uber said this. You have to basically troll yourself to get caught at this, which is why I think it's how it was in CS. Let the coaches do whatever the hell they want during the open qualifiers. They can chat with their players. They can be IGLing from the backseat. But if that team quals to the VCT and the coach can't talk anymore, whatever, they're fucked. It puts it down to the teams themselves to have good coaching strategies. If you're a good coach, you shouldn't have to be talking to your players mid-game. You should have already instilled these. You should have already gotten the team ready. So if they want to talk during the open qualifier and just hurt themselves once they hypothetically make it into the main VCT event and they're stuck in a TeamSpeak and communication channels are limited, I'm all for it. That's fine. That's their prerogative.
I guess these teams should be practicing under match conditions if they want to give themselves a real chance of winning. And then relying on the crutch of a coach
wants to play with their coach talking, that's fine. Whatever. I don't care. They're not going to make it in.
It's only going to hurt them.
Yeah.
And look, the reason why I can get on board with this is because it is literally unenforceable what people are asking to happen. I think Psycho mentions in the chat, he says he wants recorded comms and a webcam recording for all of these round of 32 double elimination matches. Who the fuck is scrubbing through that stuff? I guess you only have to scrub through if there's like an allegation, right? But what if there's no allegation? Like if it's not,
how do you record it?
Someone's doing
I think there's 4 admins working the whole open qualifier.
No, the players. So something we used to do in CS as well, certain events would do, but it always hurts lower level teams who have shitter PCs. You know, we have some people that genuinely play on laptops, trying to go through open quals, right? But you would have to have a VOD. You would have to have recorded. Now in CS you can record it in game, but you could also use like your GeForce experience or whatever, any form of recording of the game which had your comms, which had all your audio on it. And then if you were asked by an admin, if somebody reported you for cheating, you would then have to provide that VOD. And if you couldn't provide it, so like there was no way to prove you were recording it, but if you didn't provide it when asked, it was presumed you were cheating and you were kicked.
Can we just appreciate the fact that T1 has always built their team around like really solid IGLs. First days, I guess there was a period without one. They had Curry step up, and now, like it's been pointed out in chat by BJ and Sano, Steel doesn't need a fucking IGL in his ear. No, doesn't need someone who's never played CS or like Valorant high level, like in his or his teammates' ears. Yep. Why can't you just fucking trust one of the most storied IGLs of TAC FPS history in North America to do his fucking job?
That's why potentially David Denis should have been MM1 or MM2ing to his team when maybe Daves was calling for the team, because it was like 5 seconds every time they were trying to fucking hit a sight on split, right? And that's probably another reason why, sorry, MitchMan, but I wanted to call you out for what you were saying, calling out of like, hey, if David Denis gets punished, but it's also like 5 players that are listening to this shit and like, these guys should be punished too, aka pieces of shit as well. I don't know. I'm not fucking quoting you word for word from this now, MitchMan, but you know what I mean. But I had to call you on to this one too, because you have actually a good. Yeah, there you go, fuckers. It wasn't shitheads, it was fuckers. Anyways, I still have to say that you have some great players in this team and a great IGL in Steel, where technically you don't really need that person in your ears to tell you to fucking help sewers or to say what's going on in between. Well, the thing that David Denis was doing, chatting to his teammates or chatting to his players in between the rounds, were basically the old school style of CSGO, where the coaches were still able to talk to their team during the freeze time, during the buy time. But I think the reason why that rule was enforced and the coaches weren't able to talk anymore until timeouts was because during that freeze time, then you could say, okay, well, hand signals, bad shit, like he looks at the crowd, there's signs going, people are going B, and then you just do like a fucking secret code, and then that's why you need to not allow the coaches talking in freeze time. And I think that's why you're trying to enforce this into online as well. It's very, very difficult to fucking do. In the end, though, what I'm trying to get to is David Denis, yes, it's great that he got punished, but I don't think that the players should have all the repercussions around that, because you already have a great IGL that's able to call for the rest of this young gun team that have been doing so well so far until this whole shit happened.
Yeah.
One of the main issues I have, when we look at EMEA, and it's something that the reason T1 stung so particularly was because of the way that they try to get ahead of it. They put out like, oh, our coach is saying, and I was getting the perspective that something maybe a little fishier going on there, T1 being T1. One of the weird things, though, was like Steel, right? It wouldn't really make sense for this guy to risk his reputation now after all these years for a little bit of help by IGL, which he doesn't fucking need. Like, it was no realm in which the team sat down and said, hey, guys, let's do this. At the same time, you do have a little bit of a responsibility. Your coach is helping you in between rounds. You just turn around and go, shut the fuck up, dude. You know, it's like, I know full well that players have done that in EMEA, turned to their coach and literally said, dude, like, let's not fuck around here, just because they don't want to get fucked over by some rules. At the same time, I know there's teams that don't do that. And the thing I'll go back to, I was talking about earlier on in the week, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was won by a dude coughing, right? Like a guy in the crowd giving away the answers by coughing. In my opinion, if you're a coach now, again, it's not really fair at an open qualifier. You could even make the argument for closed qualifiers, depending on how many admins the tournament has. But I think that if a coach fucking sneezes, it is a breach of the rules. Your microphone should be muted at all times until it comes to those timeouts. Anything other than that, saying like, oh, I was just hyping the boys up. It doesn't fucking matter, because you end up with a team coming up with a system when they go, great job, guys. That means go A. Good job, guys, means go B. Some bullshit. Like, you have to just take it with a broad brush and go, no talking, that's it, end of story. It's not that hard to do. Lots of people manage it. We have the same in EU. G2 recently had a coach caught from a voice clip put up there communicating in some way, whole investigation done, and so on and so forth. And I think it just goes to prove that at the end of the day, these rules, they don't fucking work. They're not helping anybody. We need to get rid of them, move on to the next thing. And at the same time, fuck you if you are abusing them. Even still,
we have to do this, right? We have to compare this to the G2 situation then, all right? This is a situation in which allegedly we can hear Pipson communicating with the players by voice during a game. So can we discuss this? Like, are these comparable situations? Is one worse than the other? Pipson's, doing it over voice, over mic. It's there's no paper trail, so to speak, left by this sort of behavior
until the VOD came out.
I don't care what way they do it in. I don't care if you're saying good job. I don't care if you're directly saying let's call this strat, this strat, this strat, because it is just a small leak being opened up, and it could just be a tiny bathtub on the other side, or it could be a whole fucking lake of cheating stuck that has just been hidden for this long. I think if you get caught for doing anything, the only safe presumption you can make is that they have been cheating every day that they have been coaching, and they have been saying whatever the fuck they want to their players.
You hear something like good job, that can confirm that you guys are predicting correctly or something,
Yeah, I think if you're a coach, it's not hard to mute your mic. It's one button, not that challenging. Don't do it.
So, so there's an equivalence here between the two of them. But let's talk about what kind of punishment have G2 suffered. What are the repercussions for this behavior?
Nothing, right? I think it was nothing.
Yeah, it's pretty much nothing.
They might have they got a warning. That's what it was. They got a warning.
Pretty much nothing.
Which again comes down to, I think the context of these situations doesn't matter at all. Somebody, as you're saying, Mimi, if they're coughing, if they're saying good job, if they're saying, let's use the ult on A and go push in. Same fucking thing, and you have to treat it the same, even if it isn't. But yeah, G2 didn't get a punishment for it, and again, it comes back to in EMEA, we've always handled things way softer, way lighter, and there's a lot of context taken into consideration in like every case, which oddly is a bad thing in these scenarios, right? As we're saying, the rule book should be black and white. It should not matter who you are. If you do a certain thing, you should face the same punishment as everybody else. And right now, across regions, I will say confidently, that is nowhere near the case. There is no consistency across regions with how teams are punished, and then even regionally, it seems to be depending on the day. It's really it's the only disappointing aspect of it, honestly. And it's always been a problem. It's something we've called for a long time, is a clear, concise, and hard rule book.
So in the end, it stems larger than that, where it has to come down to what do we want for competitive integrity for this game, and it has to be passed down from Riot to the tournament organizers, right? So what can the tournament organizers bring? So the NSGs or whoever's running the stuff in Europe, what can they do to maintain the competitive integrity? What are the leaks that are going through these rule books that people could abuse, that they could potentially bring this up to Riot to say, we need to work on this, here are solutions, and what can Riot bring down into that rule book to say, to tell the TOs, if this happens, then this, right? And then it's black and white. An admin that doesn't maybe even know the game that well and is forced to go through this rule book to say, well, it's written right here, nothing I can really do right now. Like, you're looking at the fucking Bible of golf. If a ball is stuck in a fucking tree, article fucking 4.2.1.6.7b, like it builds up over time. So if it comes down to a certain rule book where you're going into Masters 1 and there's a new cam bug, or there's a new this, or there's a new that, then what do? You have that discussion. That's where the technical timeouts, you have that longer discussions because it's not in the rule book. The admin's going to have to make a call. When the admin makes that call, write that in that rule book, update it, and spread it across all the other tournament organizers through an official Riot rule book. It's going to take a while to build, but I think that's how it should start.
Okay. I think this is part of the reason why there was such an outcry over the sort of the Vikings ruling, with the camera, right? Because this is not consistent, right? The way these rules are enforced. Now, I understand one is Freaks, one is Nerd Street, one is Riot Europe, one is Riot North America. But I've encountered this a ton of times in these corporate scenarios where people pass the buck onto like regional offices. There needs to be a consensus globally because we are watching this stuff globally. We as viewers of Valorant are watching Europe, we're watching NA, we're watching Masters, Champions. We need to see consistency here, otherwise there's going to continue to be this turmoil, right? This unrest. And I don't know if you can retroactively change how you plan to levy punishment at G2 for what happened with Pipson. I mean, Christ, like, and as is pointed out in chat, the guy's name is he was obviously sort of talking to his team. The idea of just letting the dogs out, with something that's so unenforceable like this might be wise. We can circle back to a thread by DDK. Maybe this helps fuel our discussion. I generally find that he doesn't talk too much, but when he does open his mouth, it's usually worth listening to.
So fucking smart.
Really, usually like an essay.
Yeah.
Basically. So, so first of all, so I think what DDK is talking about is what we've been talking about as well. How tenable is this rule about coaching? Because obviously, he says it should be punishment. That's all fine. Let's keep unrolling this one a little bit. I think we have a couple. So, as he says, a bunch of people are doing it, right? He talks about how competition is about like exploiting competitive advantages, right? And I think it's pretty clear to us, especially when there's so much writing on this, that there are people that are willing to sacrifice moral integrity. So T1 as an organization have demonstrated a willingness to stretch and bend what we consider to be moral integrity in their dealings in the past. Look at how they offered up LS as a fucking sacrifice to appease their psychotic fans in South Korea. They were more than happy to let him be the fall guy in that whole situation. He was announced as the coach. He got threatened. Korean fans went psycho. And then, of course, Joe Marsh fucking kowtowed to them. And all of a sudden, thank God LS is on a better team now, a better organization as well.
It becomes another form of mid-maxing when you're forced to, find a way to cheat or find a way to scapegoat to keep the hope alive.
I mean, again, going way back to stage 1, last year, we had a system where some teams were finding exploits and then concealing them for the right moment because the rule set allowed for that to be the case. You could cheat in a round. You could use, if this bug existed, that I shot the floor once and it killed everyone on the server, right? And we won the round. You could technically use that at 12-11. And you would win that round, and it would not be replayed. It would not be restarted. You won that round, and you get a warning. Don't do that again. So you could be there, grand finals, just fucking, shut the floor, won the game. Oh, won't do it again, my bad. Didn't know. Thought that was legit. It was wild, man. And every team could do it. So you could see another team use a cheat, and then you could just wait a bit, use that glitch yourself, and go, oh, I didn't know about that one. We have had, as I said, we've been behind in the rulebook since day 1. It's gotten better. It's gotten much, much better. There's nowhere near the level of exploitation. But now we're left with these sort of things that they don't show up on day 1. Or like, there's whispers, but there's so many other things that we need to worry about. No one really cares. When we get to this point, and look, it's become an actual issue. It's not that hard to fix. It really isn't. A small change to the open qualifier system. And I don't think it will affect results whatsoever. As Mimi said earlier, I can't remember the random name he used, but, this random team is not going to come up and suddenly beat well, let's be realistic, that could happen now, but G2 for example, just because they have a coach IGLing.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I think the thing with Pipson, for example, where we hear the nice, this all happened with a video that came out that was posted by, I think it was Nukia, right? Off the clutch, or whatever, somebody from the team. So basically, the map is already done, the series is already done, they already qualified into the next day. Then this video comes out. There was still potentially a situation where the other team could have contested into that, and that would have probably fucked the whole tournament, because you have to replay those maps, you replay the series, you replay the bracket pretty much at that point, and now you don't have time for it either. So thankfully that they didn't get well, I guess they got the warning, but was it challenged by the other team? I don't have that context.
I believe it would have been, because I think everybody challenged it as soon as that video went up. It was it was all anyone wanted to know. Are they going to be punished for this? And I think one quick thing I'd just like to say, for some people who read into this in a very aggressive way, it's not just because Pipson was caught saying something in a game, or a T1 coach was banned for talking and so on. It doesn't mean that we're saying, oh, this guy definitely IGL'd, or like they won the game because of this and so on. They might not have said anything that had anything to do with the game, but it is ultimately, if you allow that, you open the door for this whirlwind of shit to come your way.
Yep.
So it's a simple system of, if you've said anything, unfortunately, you have to be assumed, you have to be punished as if you were guilty in the competitive gaming environment, at least, because otherwise, we end up in a very bad place, I think, with a lot of gray areas.
Could we talk about, we talk about the reaction like on Twitter, all right? Because I'm reading this. I've got VCT on the other screen, whatever's going on the day, and like I just see all these tweets from TSM. Like the first tweet I see is like someone's like, "Oh, bro, their coach has communicated them." I'm like, "Oh, what the fuck is going on?" Like obviously, we know that players tweet during games, right? It's content. It's funny. I think at one point, who was it? One of XSET's players, Def, was like, why the fuck are these cunts just tweeting all the time? Like, why are they tweeting for for interactions while the game's going? What do you guys think about, like, because I think all of TSM individually and as a unit like went out and bitched about this immediately on Twitter as it was happening. Like, is this what we want to see?
That was during Icebox, right?
Yes,
so.
It was during the whole technical timeout of Icebox, because everybody was doing the investigation of the game. So you're just sitting there and waiting. So what the fuck are you gonna do? I guess you're just gonna farm impressions like they do. So
to be honest,
what do you mean?
It almost
you talk about it like you're resolved to like you're resigned to that just being a thing that is done.
Well,
is that
unfortunately, it seems as though for us in North American Valorant, it is what everybody's going down.
This is why you get fucking shit talked internationally. With what clowns.
With what history has taught us, do impressions not force the hand of investigation from Berlin? Right?
Yeah.
Uproar, quicker investigation. So why not? Let's get to Twitter and let's do this. And that is, like, as Mitch and everybody's been saying, but a part of the growth of getting these rules in order, because if one gets broken, they're like, well, we're going to try to enforce it. Quick, get on Twitter, get the Twitter fans behind us, and let's milk this as much as possible.
Twitter or Twitter?
What are we milking?
No, in my opinion, I think there's no way to fucking there's no way we're ever gonna police this. I don't think we ever should.
No.
I think it's fucking entertaining. At the end of the day, esports are entertainment. I like when Twitter becomes a circus. I like a funny Titter app. Go crazy.
Yeah.
I don't. If the players want to do it, the players can do it. If it pushes the investigation more, great. That's cool. If it does absolutely nothing and it's just them fucking jerking off on the timeline, whatever. I don't
Who
really
made
care.
this meme thing? Who made that real or whatever? Is that from Vanity's stream?
I think it was Vanity's TikTok or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Is there a rule about social media use during games, by the way, in
No.
VCT?
No idea.
Okay.
That's my
Technically, wait. Technically, I would say yes, because if you are,
The players aren't supposed to tweet until the match is over if on stream.
the players are
right?
not supposed to have phones in the fucking room when they're fucking getting their
True.
matches. If you're playing Masters,
Well, they just open
LCQ,
up Twitter on
top
their
32,
But you're on a
whatever the
PC.
fuck is going on, anything that's being monitored, true. They are on PC. You can't have your mobile phone or whatever on the in front of you, but you do have fucking PC.
Can you tweet in a
So,
tech
WhatsApp
pause?
web.
Yeah.
I mean, players do. It's not being enforced. I don't think it necessarily should be enforced. I
Yeah,
have not read
it's not good.
I have not gone page to page in the rule book and know the ins and outs of it. But I don't think it hurts anyone per se.
Right.
At
I like
worst,
it, to be
it's
honest,
a
'cause
little
I hop on
annoying
it
and
as well.
neutral. At best, it's entertaining, and I like it.
Exactly.
I'd rather be able to get updates during a tech pause if I'm just like a layman viewer from the funny Sabrosa guy tweeted. I heckin' love Sabrosa
Never
bat
think about
jets.
this.
I mean, what if it was a really long tech pause and you had to go pee?
Well, I mean, it was a 40 yeah,
Happened,
okay,
don't
yeah.
bring your phone with
I know
you.
where you're getting to with that one.
That fucking happened, homie.
Oh, fuck, yeah. But no, I find it funny. I find it entertaining. I do agree with Mimi as well. I think all this shit on Twitter with like the shit talk and the shit posts is fun.
It makes the Valorant scene fun. It makes it
yeah.
entertaining. And NA has, I think, the most shit talk out of
There's-
like all the regions, which honestly makes it really fun to follow. Because we get, Drama Tuesdays, someone got banned for cheating. There's some really funny tweets about it. Like, it makes the
To be
scene
honest, it's
interesting
probably
to
why
follow.
the viewership in NA is so good, even if your spots at like Masters and
Agreed,
Champions are
agreed.
dwindling.
It's
And
great.
Look at my hairline.
It helps
The only
scene.
thing is that because you have that, so all these tweets, they forced investigation stuff like that, and it happens. But I think it comes down to after that, whoever's enforcing the rules has to make sure that whenever that rule is enforced, that they stick to it, right? And not have the fan base of the people that are tweeting, whoever the team is, whoever the player is, sway that decision and overturn it overall with exactly what happened in Berlin, right? So I think that's the limit where the fine line where I wouldn't cross. But it's fun to just see the whole memes that's going through. Everything, like every time I see FNS all good, everything's all fucking good. Are we all good right now? David Denis fucking punished, suspended for a fucking year. All good.
I think we're all good.
Are
Wait,
we
he's
in
been
an
suspended for a
FNS
year?
Wait, has he been suspended? Wait, what'd you say, Vance?
Did you say suspended for a year?
No, I don't know. No, I'm just saying
Oh,
randomly.
fucking, you're the worst. You're the drama lover on this show, bro.
Yeah, man.
It's fucking
See?
you. You're the one that's single-handedly fueling this fucking...
I'm not the mean guy. I'm just a rumor mill guy. Rumor silly.
Are you guys confident that we've covered this from enough angles? Like,
Yes.
is there a side of this that we've not really explored, or have we kind of covered it?
I think it's good. Oh, the only thing that I want to see is that, okay, cool. David Denis cheated. T1, they have a second chance here during the open qualifiers. We already know that they have a great IGL with Steel. They have a great roster right now. I just want to see a fucking rematch of T1 and TSM for a fucking qualifying game with no fucking coaches in the side.
That's just the long form of respect, love, heart, and you fucking know it, Vance.
Yep.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. Okay.
Love you,
all right.
Josh.
Now, we have a chance here. So we have a chance to talk about some of the bright side of this and the teams that qualified. Mimi Gaming, I'm going to fire this one up for you first because you want to talk about Akrew because they, first of all, have a player on their team called Neon. Not an issue until they actually use Neon, but it's not Neon using Neon. It's Konpeki using Neon on Fracture, if I'm not mistaken. Talk us through this Akrew team because a lot of people are hyping this team up. There's like names. I think I remember Pancakes from Equinox and before that.
Okay. So TLDR on Akrew, if you're not familiar with the team, the core is that old Easy 5 roster. If you remember them, free agent squad. They were kind of womping around in tier 2 for a while. Their core gets picked up by this team. You have Pancakes, you have Gucci, you have Konpeki that were all playing together on that roster. They bring in Neon, who was on X Serenity Black, and wait. Why am I losing my mind on who their fifth player is? But yeah, so it's a team that's been together as a core for a while in the tier 2 scene. Yeah, Pancakes is the guy I'm forgetting, but he was on that roster as well on the old Easy 5 team. So they come together, get signed up by Akrew. For those of you that don't know, Akrew owns like the Animal Crossing item shop or some shit. So for like an org you've never heard of, apparently they have like the infinite money glitch from Animal Crossing. So fun fact there. But they're a really creative team.
Nook molding.
Yeah. They own, I don't know, Nookazon or something like that. But that's all besides the point. So Akrew has been playing like literally every NSG event. And for a while it was the Akrew Stralis meme because they had won 30 matches straight without dropping anything through NSGs, through Pittsburgh Knight stuff. That streak ended to Cloud9, who went on to Cloud9 Blue, who went on to win that Knight's $25,000 tournament. That's what
Still an asterisk.
Ended.
Still an asterisk because it was a agent ban
Nina,
event.
you forgot Com, I think, when you were talking about their
Com,
roster, right?
dude, how could I forget? Com's their IGL, and he was on Easy 5. So I could not forget that, man.
Clearly.
Yeah, no, I'm an average
fan.
commer. But this roster, they've been together for a while. They've been building things on up. I had huge hype for them coming into VCT, and honestly, I think they did well. They've been a team to try out some creative stuff. They were early adopters onto the KO when teams started to run him again. They were early adopters onto the Chamber, and honestly, the guy doing all that has been Konpeki. He used to be their Jet player before Neon joined into the roster, so he is a crazy fragger in his own right. But he's been filling into this secondary duelist flex role role. And what was really interesting about this event is he said, screw it, I'll try out Neon. And I think Neon is not the best. I think Jet is still much better than her for a 1-for-1 role, but on Fracture, she just works because teams are not ready for the fucky timings that come with it. Pancakes was running the breach, and those two were just sprinting everywhere together, and it was working just because TSM had no clue what was going on with the timings, and teams kept picking it against them, and Akrew just kept on winning on this map. I think the only loss was against version 1, who was obviously rolling in this event. So I'm loving the creativity that they pull out, trying this new agent, throwing a spoke in the works. That's not the saying, you know what I mean.
In the works. You Americans say wrench in the works, right?
Yeah, something
I
like that.
thought I was the one that
tires,
was fucking
folks?
sucked with these type of fucking sayings.
Yeah, but I don't think their run is disappointing at all. I think that they were really impressive for what they did. For the teams that they took down, it was hard fought battles to get all the way through. They beat that new Ambox. They beat Bait, who they've been back and forth with. They beat TSM 2-0 very, very cleanly. And the only team that took them down was the Guard, who also, my tier 2 opium is out of this world. Because Guard is another team who, very similarly to Akrew, has been grinding these exact same events and slowly improving throughout. Like, if there is anything, these two teams are the proof in the pudding that consistently playing officials, hey, it probably helps your team get better when you play together a lot.
Yep.
That's one of the things I think showed really well for those teams, that they were so structured and how they backed each other up or were playing off each other's utility and not just like losing one person in the beginning of the round and lost. They had a B, they had a C, they knew what kind of mid-round strats to run. It was impressive.
And that's where I was saying before when Neon first came out, we were trying to like figure out if she was a good agent or not. 1-for-1, as Mimi say, not the best agent compared to like what Raze could escape with, what Jet could escape with. But when you're gonna have those fast lanes and you're cutting great timings with her dash or her sprint, and you have an initiator that's able to flash her out while she's concussing, bro, that's fucking strong. So we saw definitely a lot of those, especially on a map like Fracture, where you always have like these 90 angled corridors, these 90 angled checks around the around entering sites. It does a lot of damage for anybody that's trying to hold these tight angles or even trying to push forward. So I think they play that super well for Akrew overall.
Again, I think they were a lot of fun to watch. I think everyone's saying they're like tier 1.5 at the very least. There's a lot of positivity about them qualifying through the next Open qualifier. Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
4 more slots to go?
Agreed.
I think they make it. They were in my
100%.
pick'ems to make it this event. I think they make it next event, to be honest. But can we talk a little bit about the Guard? Because I feel like they're the other team. They qualified on in.
The Guard?
The Guard from the Guard. Yeah, they were looking really similar. And Vince, you talked a lot about structure for especially these teams that maybe were a little less unknown coming into the event. And I think the Guard is the best example of that. I mean, I think MCE has added a lot to this roster. I think it was Net who was doing the interview. MCE has just been a hard ass with them and just has been pushing them to be better and better. Valen, if I recall, Complexity was the first roster he IGL'd for. He's a relatively new IGL, but he has slipped into the role really well. He had a good coach back on Cole. He has a good coach in MCE here on the Guard, and we have seen his calling improve. Their protocols and their presets, look
IGL
great. And he's
fragger, big
also
time.
fragging like crazy. And then you have Saya back on this roster, who is Spider. He is fantastic on the Jet. Was performing out of his mind. Trent was pretty much a nobody coming into this, right? He had never really played on a big team before.
Was that Trent, also known as Habib? That was it.
He used to be Habib. He was a ranked demon. That's pretty much all we know. They trialed him out
to win this map or something like that. I remember this like on the A.
It was on
side.
Ascent. Yeah.
Oh, it was on Ascent. Right.
Ascent B. Yeah.
The 2K clutch? Yeah.
No, but Trent was insane. Net has been a player who again has been playing out. He was with Tealseam back when it was still 7 on that roster. Tealseam, and then I think he went to Squirtle Squad from there. So he's been around for a while in a lot of these like younger rosters. But he looks really good on the Sentinel role, provides a lot of flexibility for this squad. And then you also get Jonah P over from Complexity, who's just another really solid flex. The fragging potential for this team is great. It's clear that MC is helping to whip him into shape, and I think Valen's development as an IGL just keeps on showing. And every time I watch them play, they are getting better. They are improving.
And to add on to that, because I wanted to add the question that came out from MeMeister6 in the chat too, was asking if Som was like the weak link of that team. I don't necessarily think so.
We never got to see that, really, did we?
We never really got to see it because he was only starting in the beginning of the creation of the guard when Som was in that roster, and they were still trying players in, right? You had Dicey that came into trial. You had Drone that came into trial as well. You had so many players coming through so that you could find the right 5. And until you see that Trent is available and the scouting that came out from MCE to be like, okay, well, Habib is a fucking rank demon. There's potential in here. Will this mesh well with the young roster that's currently trying to be built with the guard? And they tried it out. The trial works out really well. And that's how you make that switch. It's not to say how bad Som performed or whatnot, but like Som has his moments. He maybe needs to find a better team that fits his play style, and how he wants to play. But so far, with all the other teams in the histories that you see where Som was at before, no team fits his current play style right now.
Okay, that's is that? Do you think that's true? No. What does it mean? Okay, what does it mean, Vansilli? I'm going to press you on this. That no team fits his current play style.
Ooh.
What are you trying to say, man?
He had a good run in the first year in the beta days, like actually homeless to Dignitas, but ever since the days at Dignitas where you saw the resurgence or the emergence of Def switching over from CS:GO into Valorant, the game's maybe moving in a different direction where the skill set that Som has maybe doesn't fit to that yet.
Ah, so it's not him, it's the game. Is that what you're saying?
You're saying he's washed.
You're saying he's bad, Alex. You're saying he's bad.
Listen, I'm on the Som copium where Som was like, I'm gonna be a pro in every game that I play. He's done it in Heroes of the Storm. He's done it in Fortnite. He's done it in the beginning of Valorant. So I still believe that Som could still bring this back because he has the mentality of a winner. He's probably gonna read Ninja's book, get good.
You can do it in
and then
Heroes
he'll be
of
fine.
Storm. You can do it anywhere.
You can do it anywhere.
Listen, man. I love that guy.
Listen,
I want him to succeed.
I will keep you accountable. You try and hit me with that wishy-washy shit, I'm going to come for you. Let's move on.
It's
Let's
all
talk
good. I'll just keep wishy-washy it.
Talk about V1. All right. Another team obviously qualified. Now, this team obviously, okay, I could just be speaking for myself, and this is just someone who's a bit more of a casual when it comes to NA Valorant, but with the departure of Vanity, it feels like a lot of like people's excitement about this team tempered a little bit, right? Such a a big character, impactful player in game. People are like, I'm not sure about V1 now.
Yeah.
Bringing Xander on, who's like a less known quantity, especially someone like me. People are wondering, okay, what's this team doing? Remember, they had like Zelsis out for a while. Whippy couldn't play for a spell. It felt like it took so long for V1 to actually be able to get like all of their players that were supposed to be playing actually playing. But it looks like this is where the planets are starting to align for them here. Rise looked completely deflated at this point in the tournament, if I'm honest with you. V1 looked excellent, right? This team was kind of known for their utility use, I want to say, even before this, right?
The post plant, yeah.
Yeah.
And here we are. Let's talk a little bit about V1 and sort of where they're at now.
Yeah,
I feel like V1 didn't have to show a damn thing going through here. Honestly, they just continued to tactical dance on or crouch on kids when they won rounds. 18-0 on Breeze for Whippy. The way they were able to play through these doesn't allow them to show much, but I think the fact that they continued to put that pressure on was good to see. I think they'll do well still towards the top 4 teams that are already there with Sentinels, Envy, Cloud9, 100 Thieves. I actually think they could be top 3 coming into this if they're that actually strong. Even though I just said they weren't really tested, I think they have a lot more to show still.
Do you think they got like an easier run through this bracket then?
Nah.
Because they had to play Akrew, didn't they?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they still showed, that's what I mean. They kept the consistency up even against teams that may have been able to dent them.
For a team where people are coming in with question marks, right? To say, oh shit, like what kind of penny are we gonna see right now? Is it gonna be the penny of Iceland? Is it not gonna be the penny of Iceland?
8-0. Boom.
Yeah, now that they lose Vanity, what's it gonna look like? Trying to find an identity, as Zelsa is trying to call, not working out. And then you have a team like Akrew that's won 30 matches in a row, 30 series in a row. It's like, oh shit, this is the biggest test. Yeah. And now look at the scoreboard Stevens here. Like Penny's top fragging so far, doing a fucking great job. And I love this moment because for Penny, he tweeted it out later. It's like, oh, like something along the lines of like, oh, I'm seeing back my form again. I'm happy to see that. And it's almost like a moment of like Durka, for example, with Fnatic. And Anders is fucking laughing in the chat about it most likely too, where everybody was doubting Fnatic to see what Fnatic was going to look like going into Champions. It's just fucking
it was
fucking owned.
Josh was doubting Durka, and then everyone was parroting his opinion. That's what actually happened.
And then everybody in fucking Fanatics starts talking shit in like a good way because they're like, you guys all fucking doubted us. Look at us now, right? Who's
You gotta
laughing
roll
now?
with the egg.
And that's what Penny had. And Zelsis fucking owned, man. Zelsis is so good on this KO. And V1, they just continue to be very, very aggressive and very quick in these trades. On the top of Xander, we talk about him being, or at least me, I see that he's a great anchor as an Astra player on top of that too on defense, and a great IGL for V1. And they just got fucking a huge upgrade with just one change.
Xander is really good as an IGL, to be honest. He's been like kind of washing around rosters for a while and finally takes his home here. He's pretty much been playing Astra since she came out, and I think it's a role that they needed. He is pretty much a 1-for-1 Vanity, a ratty fragging Astra who's a really strong IGL. He can come into this roster and very directly fill that void. I mean, let's be honest, V1 in the interim between Iceland and now was a disappointment. Penny could never live up to what he did at Iceland. Zelsis' calling just was not looking that good. Now you get a younger guy, you get a fresh face in the roster, and you get some fresh ideas. You still have Evies and Zelsis, both of whom have IGL'd before, and I'm sure can add ideas in, can help Xander out, and they also have a great coach in EMEA. I mean, it's the perfect place for this guy to continue to develop as an IGL and to kind of be able to shape this team, because the amount of pure fragging power there is huge. And I mean, I think you brought up a huge point around Zelsis on his KO. I think he was doing so much as an individual to set Penny up for success, which felt like it was lacking. It's always been such a utility heavy team, but in that gap after Iceland, it kind of felt like a lot of rounds Penny was being left out to dry, and the coordination wasn't quite there, in some fault to Penny, in some fault to his teammates. But now both Evies and Zelsis are doing so well to just look like a coordinated unit with that duelist. And Effie's especially, if I'm a scoreboard Andy, he didn't do crazy in some of these series, but the clutches that this guy was pulling off, it really felt like I was watching, it felt like I was back watching Iceland again, right?
Yeah,
the clutch king. And he was back at it, looking so good. Just 1v2 after 1v2 after 1v2, consistently strong utility usage on the Sova. This is a V1 team that I think, hot take, look better than they did when they were at Iceland.
Yeah,
I
no,
agree.
I agree. I think it looks pretty good. And just to add to the point, now that we've talked about Xander and we've talked about Valen, for example, two IGLs, fraggers, and able to play smokes. And the only player that people were thinking about that could actually frag IGL and play smokes, we lost him, right? It's Nitro that went back to CSGO, and now to see that we have two young players like this, and who knows how many more that's going to be to emerge within this scene that's going to be able to play IGL, smoke in that way. It's fucking amazing. And yes, indeed, that's another one that, you know, he's part of, still probably on top of the best Astra smoke agent outside of Nitro is Dep for me as well.
And also,
it's so good to see. Yeah.
Also, let me say, quick reminder, version 1 has been playing lots of Mickey Mouse tournaments.
Yep.
Maybe there's some kind of something in between. Valorant Elite Series, Winter Champs Weeklies. They lost in the grand finals to Cloud9 at the Valor Rampage.
Why not Looney Tunes or something?
I don't know. It's just what it is. Even after qualifying into VCT, they went and played the Winter Champs LCQ. Like, literally, they qualify into VCT main event and are like, all right, Mickey Mouse time. Let's go, boys. We're going to keep running it. We're going to keep practicing. And I love that for them, right? They are grinding. They want to continue to grow as this roster. There is a very direct comparison between teams that play the video game and teams that are good at the video game.
Yeah. I mean, because what's another team that qualified to play Mickey Mouse events and that people were still laughing and be like, and another
they
one
had their free qualification, but they were in there. Who else did we have qualify? XSET. XSET was playing weeklies. The guard was grinding them. All 4 of the teams that qualified have been grinding Mickey Mouse events.
NRG, people were laughing about it. Team back. Hazed came in, plays Valorant page on an Astra. Oh shit, Hazed could actually frag, but it's still Mickey Mouse tournament because people are playing weird agents. But these guys are putting the practice in, they're putting the reps in, and then now they're even playing the LCQ for Winners Championship as well for NRG. So
we don't have any.
So we got an interview here from Xander. I want to.
Sorry,
I was gonna say. So that was the first thing that I was gonna talk about before we actually started that section, but I didn't want to be that guy because I'm the NA guy. So I'm glad MitchMan talked about it. But yeah, thank you. Fuck you.
All right. We got some words here from Xander, I think. So we'll run an interview now. If you guys missed it on the main broadcast, we've got it here for you, courtesy of the Valorant Twitch channel. Roll it.
Yeah, I mean we've been working hard. Like we have a lot of strats, we have a lot of setups, we have a lot of like post plant retakes, like ideas. Like I think our utility is very like well used. I think back in like Iceland, these guys were literally known for using lineups and like stuff like that. So like in general, this team is really good at using utility. Like people might look at us and like say, oh, they can't really aim and stuff, but I feel like more and more, well, I think everyone's getting there. I think we just out aimed everyone this tournament too. It's like, yeah, our tactically and like even just brawly, we just beat everybody.
Sorry, were we ever saying that V1 couldn't aim? Was that actually like a criticism that was levied at this team?
Maybe
Well,
yeah,
is what
between
kind of
Iceland
Penny we're gonna see.
and then that was probably when Penny was kind of bricked down and not performing very well.
And then FE's when he was IGLing, not fragging as much
Yeah.
either. So I think they were getting a lot of criticism that way as well.
Okay. Can we? I want to talk about XSET here because this was the team that we just expected to kind of run the gamut pretty comfortably. Obviously they didn't make it towards Masters Champions last year, but I mean they come in with the addition of Cryocells, who's like giga hiked up. This team has already shown they're just incredibly good at scouting players and then like identifying talent, like depth to bring onto this roster and to really even it out. Let's talk about their run here. I think, they go up against NRG and the Guard back to back, and they flatten both of them. And let's not forget these are two other teams that qualified. But it seems like it seems like XSET just are on a little bit of a different level. Close game against NRG though. I think that actually was a kind of match where Som actually got to show us what he was really capable of on that jet and turned up in a big way. But this XSET team kind of crazy, right? Cryocells hyped up as a jet player. Does he live up to it here in the qualifiers?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. I mean, I think that Pure R, I really like the guy. He's a good dude. I think he's a pretty solid player, but he doesn't have the star power that a lot of other jets in the region do. And if you look at all of the best teams in NA, everyone just has an absolutely cracked out of their mind jet player that is just above and beyond. And I think that XSET directly needed someone who could take those head-to-heads with your Tenses, with your Leafs, with the people that XSET are consistently facing. And I think that Cryo is the guy. I also, from their team dynamic, Pura was a lot quieter. He was a guy that was always there. He was obviously playing well with the team, but he's a quieter player. And I think that, that Cryo coming on into this, he's a guy who's been grinding his way through the tier 2 scene, has been getting a lot of experience in that way, can bring some ideas into the roster, can bring his crazy individual skill, and he lived up to it. His performance was exemplary. I think by like day 2, he had the most consistent entry frags of anyone in the whole tournament. It was Cryo, and it showed in these games. It also, I love that they're keeping with just having one of these jet players because it lets Zekin have the flexibility that he's known for. He can play the Rays, he can play the initiators really well, and it all works to set up Cryo.
There was a bit of like nerve shake off for him too. I remember on some of the maps, he was going aggressive. Now he was trying to instill that job he had, get up front, do things. And then a few of his dashes would be after an op shot kill would be at his target, like up Stewards. And he's like, oh shit, I got to turn around and go back. Like there was still some nerves there. And it's awesome to see that he could work through them and still be that jet player that they needed to be added.
Fucking Jesus, this guy almost dropped 40?
Yeah, he was going wild.
The whole duo of the young fraggers of Cryosel and Zekin is very, very promising on the development of XSET as a whole right now.
And Zekin's KO looked really good this event.
Yeah. Fuck, man. KO is such a good agent, eh, guys?
KO is, seems like a necessity now.
Yeah.
So strong.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Too bad you believed in him when he was pretty trash. And I just
you know what? That's why I'm nice silly, man.
You're
I see
just
the
playing
potential
the
in
event.
everybody.
That's just playing the eventually game.
Yeah, Vance is just
I
nice
see
about
the
everything,
potential.
and he's bullish
I'm gonna
about
get on.
everything.
Yours the best
and when
agent
one of
everyone
them
should be
works
running
out-
him. And then I'm gonna say I told you so if he gets buffed.
No, because I don't see Yuri yet. Like I said, Neon right now.
Phoenix is the best agent. Just wait.
I saw Chamber Game picked a lot.
Just wait, trust me.
I'm leaving the best for last here. A team I really want to talk about, a team that's pretty exciting, that was supposed to be exciting when they put this roster together before Hazed got brought onto the team, is NRG. Riv, you seem to feel like there was throughout the course of this tournament, there was a real course correction by this roster that ended up getting him in a position to qualify. What can you tell us about this NRG squad?
I feel like the one mistake they made in the upper bracket was the last one that they made. I mean, every time you hear energy anyways for like the past year or whatever, it's like, when's Asu joining, right? But I think we finally have this team where you see this, a lot of players brought together from people that have played together before. Like Josh RT, the coach, had prospects with Tex, right? And that was a team with Dicey and Baby J too. So now they bring on Sam, who is this other great player. And since Counter-Strike, Josh RT has been fantastic at finding and fostering talent. So already we've seen the growth of this squad since last year, 2020, October 7th is when they grabbed Sam, and the growth of Hazed and the rest of them is becoming this squad that has finally found an identity. And I wanted to focus on Sam for a bit here and just his jet throughout the entirety of this tournament, because I think it's one of the big things that helped them turn it around, and the way he played it and the aggression that he feels identifies his agent play. It was 326 rounds of jet last weekend, right? 1.51 KDA. And he was creating pressure through smothering his opponents everywhere. And usually you expect a dash after a jet takes an engagement where they don't get a first kill, but he would play the mind game of staying there, finding a 2K, finding a 3K. And the fact that he was quite successful across this throughout the tournament made even more of a mind game for his opponent, right? You take those types of fights that Sam did over and over again, you condition the opponent to have this over-the-shoulder look on every strat they do. You wonder if you need another person to take this fight because it's Sam pushing up towards AK Von Breeze. Just the things he was able to do alone with the rest of his team behind him. Texas KO was chef's kiss as well. Some of the stuff he was pulling off. They really pulled together a team that people should be afraid of, because the ceiling was not this event for them. And I even saw Hazed with 211 CS over the 2 games. They basically swamped 13-3 Rise. So, I mean, he had the assists. He wasn't not doing anything. It wasn't like he was dying every round. So put Hazed in there with frags, and they're that much more powerful too. It's kind of ridiculous how they did this with just the 4 members crushing, playing as a team, and on the back of Sam going forward. 70 first bloods to 38 first deaths.
Yeah.
Like,
that's why Sam was able to do all that too, right? He's able to play aggressive. He's able to do like the quote unquote aggressive dumb stuff sometimes that people see in ranked games just because of the roster that's behind him. Android on this chamber, we've always praised him of how good he is one-tapping with Vandals, ADSing with Vandals. Now he's able to do the same thing with a fucking Headhunter on these pistol rounds. And so just him individually could lock down one area of a map on defense and also push into that angle and play those rounds individually. If he dies, if Psalms dies, who else is left? You got motherfucking Tex that's playing great on as a fucking KO. He's able to frag out because we knew how good he was as a duelist as well when he was playing Reyna for, I forgot which team. Was it Gen.G? Can't really remember anymore. But
ACP?
Thank you. So he's playing that very well in terms of like of this agent, and then you have EU that's also been pretty much high up there in the fragging department, in especially their qualifying games against Rise. And he could clutch. If he can't clutch, then you got James. Like Hazed is one of those guys just gonna sit back, let the team do its job, and when it's time to clutch, he could definitely clutch it out too. So it's getting better and better time after time, rep after rep. Hey, I said time after time in a podcast, not a broadcast. But rep after rep, it's looking good for energy, and they're playing these tournaments still. They're still having fun. They played with Flex Inja yesterday, so even if Sam and Tex weren't available to play in the LCQ, they were playing with Josh RT. They're playing with Tex just so that they get the reps in. So it's fucking great.
So Vans and Riv, you guys gave us a great interview with Hazed after that game.
The wisdom.
He felt very vindicated by the sounds of things. What was your takeaway from getting a chance to talk with him there?
Amazing, dude. I honestly, it was a very, very emotional interview from the way that James was talking about it, because, you know, he's in his 30s, right? And he's at a point where if he doesn't have those opportunities, or if he didn't have that opportunity with TSM, the doors are closing a lot, because people seem to really go around the whole storyline of like up and comers, young talent, let's build them up, and then like anybody who's 25 and older is just going to be too old in the game and they can't catch up and they can't hang with everybody else. So to see that Hazed has his opportunity to play for energy, and that energy had a lot of faith in Hazed into what he could bring onto the table, and you see these results right now from energy, you could really see that he doesn't take it for granted, and that he's putting all the effort in to make sure that he's able to have a good career and represent this team super well, which I love to hear from James.
Yeah, not a caveat, but I'm keeping focus on when they do kind of find a place where they have to come back from when maybe they haven't won so many games, because this was a pretty easy road for them, and you're going to be feeling good. There's a bit of a honeymoon phase with team change and whatnot. So being able to keep that mental, knowing that they can work out of a rut, is also something we need to see this team do. So I definitely, like I said, I don't think we saw their ceiling. So wherever they go is going to be pretty impressive to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hard guy not to like is Hazed,
sure.
that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I mean, this really sets the stage, I think, for our next qualifier, right? We've got 4 more slots left, and there are going to be some top teams that just straight up don't make it. There's like rivalries that need to be rehashed because TSM and T1 both need to, to make it through. I don't know how likely it is in a double elimination format. There's a chance they do get to play against each other. Pretty exciting stuff. I'm fucking razzed up for it. I'm not going to lie. We've been doing this for about 90 minutes so far. So I'm going to let you guys go. Riv and Mimi, thanks so much for coming on the show. Though it's really great to get some insights from you on what was an insane weekend of NA Valorant.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
Great for
No
the
worries.
takes.
Take care. You too.
Love
We're
the
going to head
hot
to a break, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about like the VCT Champions slots, how they've sort of changed, some stuff going on over in Europe, and then we'll talk about some of the developer insights going into this year of 2022. So stick around. More Valoranting coming at you on the other side of the break. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Valoranting. If you missed the first part of the show, definitely recommend you go back and check it out, either here in Twitch in the VOD directory or at youtube.com/Valoranting, because we had a great time with Mimi and Rivington talking about NA in terms of their qualifiers for VCT this weekend. But we must move on. Let's talk a little bit now about some of the discussion that came up this week regarding slots for VCT Champions. So, this had already been announced, I think, but this kind of discussion resurfaced, I think, because there was like another screenshot, another graphic that's sort of depicting the distribution of slots for champions. And there were some complaints. So, oddly enough, from Guild, I guess fair enough if you come from a stacked region. But basically, with the level of competition in EMEA, I feel like as if Riot is really out to end career. Okay, stop. Safe, just fucking get a grip. Please. Obviously, you're very disappointed. I understand that. Whoever makes up this stuff makes me as a player feel unsafe for the future. Seriously, just try and hold on to something, a door handle, at the edge of a table, and just take a couple fucking breaths. Might as well relocate to a nation company. Yeah, I heard Bleed Esports is looking for fucking European players, Safe. Go over there. Go fuck off to Singapore. Can we show? Okay, so obviously another person from Guild also weighs in on this discussion. So to make it clear, Champs had 2 EMEA teams as the finalists, but given no reward outside of prize pool. I guess he's talking about in terms of slots being expanded.
For next year,
EMEA has 3 for Masters, but also 3 for Champs, while other regions gain extra. EMEA is 3 regions. Has only 3 spots versus others which have more for just 1 or 2 regions. This is kind of XD. Okay. I don't think this is unreasonable necessarily. I think Safe's being a little bit, I'm trying to have empathy for Safe there. I think he's a little bit. I'm trying to get out the fucking flute, but the little violin rather. Let's talk about, we got an image here that depicts this though. So let's have a look at the actual, this fucking graphic that details the slots for VCT. Because I think there is a discussion to be had about examining how a region performs internationally and then sort of looking at how many slots they're being allocated. If you really believe in having the very best competition, the very best teams in attendance, then you might consider, giving more slots to the regions that do better. So I guess, Mitch, this tweet sort of points out that EMEA, the average placement, much higher. They get less slots than South America, less slots than APAC, who perform, much worse in general. What are your thoughts on this? You're from Europe. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, obviously I think EMEA should have the most slots. I think even trying to be objective about it, looking at performance at last champs, it says it outright. The last few international events, it's the best region, man. But right, I can definitely empathize a lot with the fact that there's geographical limitations within APAC. You can't necessarily, like, if you gave 3 slots to APAC, maybe skill wise, let's say we give them 4 for population. How the hell are you going to dish those up evenly? It's not going to work. You have to have a lot more qualifiers there, a lot more diversity in that sense. So it makes sense. But when it comes to Europe, we also have 3 regions lumped in together, which is the key part that always gets brushed over. North America, like even when you go to LATAM, as a Brazil having their own, and then you've got Europe, Turkey, and CIS, with a CIS team competing at the peak of the international stage, and separate, mostly EU team doing the same. And we fucking know the Turks can do it as well. We've seen what CNET has. Give them a full 5 Turkish that doesn't disband ahead of those international events. Bring back the Supermassive Blaze of old. That could also be a top-level competitor. So you have 3 distinct regions with their own distinct play style that are treated as one, which kind of fucking sucks when they're given the same amount of slots as... like, honestly, I think there would be an argument... I don't think NA should lose a slot, but I think when you look at South America, I think when you look at APAC, 1 extra slot towards the EMEA, bump them up to 4, and I think everybody would be happy, honestly.
Okay. Because it's not wrong that EMEA is made up of sub-regions, but they say that, and then they just go, oh, yeah, South America gets 4 slots. I'm like,
Yeah.
hang on. South America is also made up of sub-regions. So why are you only talking about sub-regions when it, like, benefits your argument? Southeast Asia is also made up of sub-regions.
South America is fucking huge, bro.
Like, I just don't
So
understand the
is-
logic of, like, you
Yeah.
only using the sub-regions argument when it applies to, like, you trying to sort of express the strength of your region.
Yeah.
Is that not flawed logic?
No, I agree. They're like huge regions right now in South America. They deserve to have like more representation, because when we think about South America, most likely people are just thinking about Brazil and not everybody else. But then you look at how Akrew did with Latin America, and it kind of shows like, you know, there is good potential and there are good teams out of this region. But I kind of like, maybe, you know, without being biased or whatever, looking at because I'm looking at who's able to make it, right? The other 2 spots for South America for last chance qualifiers, and then you have 2 spots for APAC, which is what, the Oceanic region for APAC North and APAC South. So where you lose slots for North America and for EMEA is for this new region that's been added that didn't have any representation in last year's circuit, which is APAC, in my opinion. An APAC Oceanic region is also another huge region. So if you have an APAC North and an APAC South and give them a chance to get into the circuit to see what the Oceanic region has in terms of skills and what they bring to the table, then give them a chance for 2022, and then let's reevaluate for 2023.
It's the crew effect almost, right? At least in
Right.
how I look at it. We've already established that EMEA is doing well, and I think with adding the VRL, that's where they've sort of made up for it, right? They're saying, okay, you don't get an extra champ slot because we want to develop the APAC region. We've put time and effort into Brazil and LATAM. Listen, boys, you know, I was on this show quite a bit last year. I think y'all heard me quite clearly saying it was a waste of fucking time putting slots towards Brazil and LATAM. That was proven to be incorrect now. Happy to sit back and say I was wrong on that one. So looking at APAC, I understand why they're sitting down and saying, hey, let's do the same there. Let's bring these APAC teams up. And honestly, I think that in this case, I support it even more. Not because Crew have already broken the mold or whatever, but because we actually saw so much potential from teams like Secret. We're also seeing organic growth there with the fact that Secret picked up the brand squad to give them that international influence to be able to travel to these events. So I think that it's a good thing. And they're giving us a reward in another way by giving us the VRL. So when Safe says, you know, oh, what the fuck am I supposed to do if I can't get the champs? You know, well, you play in the other league that goes on all year round, that support structure that's going to be there for you. These third-party events that will hopefully kick off coming in towards later on or the end of this year. There's certainly a lot of potential there for EMEA teams. I don't think that they're starving anymore the way that we were last year. If this was last year and the same decision was made, I would be fucking fuming. But right now, they've done enough that I think we're all in a pretty good space right now, and it's worth developing those minor regions.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing this. It looks like NA and EMEA get the same number of slots.
Which is fine, because that's what NA had already. NA already had 3 spots last year.
Because the Masters winners also go straight through. So potentially we could still end up with the same amount of champs EMEA teams as we had last time.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's
Realistically,
still very doable.
we will end up with that because it's going to win it instead. So,
And all that to say that there you go. There's still, well, I know you're basing it on competition and victories to be able to get more EMEA teams into the champions, but overall, it's still pretty reasonable for NA that they have 2 guaranteed, actually 3 guaranteed slots, because it's 2 NAs plus 1 from the LCQ. So there's already going to be 3 spots there, and if it's going through the same scenario, that potentially if another NA team wins Masters 2 or Masters 1, then there's a potential that there's 4 teams in NA making it to champions, right? So there's, if I'm not mistaken. if we're looking at it that way. But then looking at the other regions, what I was trying to get to is that we were kind of sleeping on these other regions as well, where we said, hey, should SEA fucking get that many slots? And look how well they did at Champions. So I think right now, in first glance, where you're saying, oh fuck, well, why does APAC have like the North and the South? There's probably still potential that these guys are going to come out from Australia and just fucking own. I mean, look at the development of Soniqs so far in North America.
It makes sense as well to experiment with this if, as talk of franchising gets more and more likely as the league grows bigger, as the game grows bigger, and so on. It makes sense to experiment now. You don't want to do this when you're actually laying the infrastructure. And if you think about it, the investment to build APAC is fucking minimal compared to making any sort of impact in North America or NA past what they're doing currently, which is already massive. Because APAC, they fucking run the events themselves. You know, you give these guys 10K, they'll run a fucking event. Like they will fucking sail. They'll swim to the event if they have to. These guys are dedicated down there. It's a region that doesn't get a lot of support historically in the FPS genre, so they're fucking hungry for it, man. No one there's gonna go, you're not giving me 300K a year. I'm not fucking playing for your team, dude. If they're getting their biscuits paid on the days that they're working, they're probably going to be happy enough. So, like,
which they shouldn't.
I want to see
because they're not happy enough. Because if we're looking at fucking talent pay out there, it's not that great either.
There was a day where it was a lot worse, obviously. But
Uber's holding himself here, sipping on his fucking Starbucks, just trying to talk about fucking talent rates here in fucking Oceanic region.
Oh, listen, I didn't mean to open that can of worms. But,
the talent rates in the Oceanic region. I mean, that shit's fucked, mate. And those guys can't even get out of Oceanic because they can't find a fucking a game dev that's going to give them a visa. So these poor motherfuckers are stuck there making $50 a day because these shit cunts, who get told that they can run like the actual Valorant scene in Australia are paying pennies. It's disastrous. An absolute fucking joke. There are there are a ton of like good casters who you could throw in Australia. You could throw on a VCT broadcast and they do a great job, but they're getting completely fucking railed. These guys, I feel for them. I have survivor's guilt. I swear to God, it fucking. I think about it all the time. Bala had some takes on this as well. So obviously Bala weighs in here. Obviously analyst on the VCT circuit.
Bala
really,
Fortnite. I love Fortnite.
Yeah, also Fortnite. Yep, but also Valorant. But what he's pointing out is that there's a shift away from EMEA and North America towards other regions. So Oceania gets I guess an actual path to Masters. So not just an LCQ, I guess they can qualify via SEA, I suppose. And then Dream goes, is EMEA actually losing any representation here? For those who are listening, this is a tweet thread. There's a good argument that they should be gaining slots based on their results, but they had 3 slots at Masters and 3 slots at Champs in 2021. The only change you could argue with that is there isn't a slot reserved for the last Masters winner.
Was there
There you go.
That's the case. That's what Mitch said, right? Is that what you said? No, actually, you didn't say that. Yeah.
I was under the impression that the Masters winner will go straight through, right? This time?
Apparently not. Apparently not. I think they're just going through spots now.
Do we still have the graphic? Oh, okay. There was a graphic we saw earlier, right? Like the really old image. So that's changed then, has it? The really old image had Masters down the bottom, I'm fairly certain. That was the one.
And I think this was
Masters 3 winner. Yeah.
Yeah, Masters 3 winner, so this was last year.
That's last year's. Oh, okay. I mixed up the graphics. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. But as we were saying, the EMEA slots and stuff will remain the same. So then we kind of end up with one less. Well, we will end up with one less EMEA team then.
You'll get 3 instead of 4.
Yeah. That's kind of fucked up. But
I agree with Safe.
I can understand it on one perspective of growing the minor region, as in I understand why they're putting more into it, but it feels like a little bit too much more if you're reducing the on paper strongest region slots.
But you're also reduced. Well, technically, you've reduced Korea, if I'm not mistaken, right? Korea is only allowed to have 1 team at Champions as well. So I think that makes sense as well, because if you're looking at the Korean region, that region kind of like just blew up. And then yes, people are talking about
though. Because NA as well, like that Masters slot was not an EMEA slot; it was an everyone slot. So
correct.
Not like it's just 1 or 2 regions being hurt by it; it's everybody now has 1 less for APAC to have. So in this case, essentially, what I'm saying is the 6th worst team in APAC better be fucking good, because if they roll up and get shit on at Champs, gonna be a lot of hate going their way. I'll tell you that, because
this is why I'm gonna say they have no choice but to look at this and reevaluate for 2023. That's the only thing you could really think about.
This is gonna cause some problems. There's too many scenarios that can now evolve that are gonna just be terrible. And it's like I think a lot of the time you charge the community against the region you're trying to help. A classic example of that was Brazil, going back to Masters or Reykjavik or anything like that, when every region was just looking at those teams getting absolutely stomped and looking at Japanese teams and so on and just going, why are they here and not our third best team? Or like, why, my favorite team isn't there, but these guys are. And if you give a region like APAC that many slots and the teams don't show up, that's how
do you fix it though? What's your recommendation? What if there's going to be more the regions that's going to be involved, and that has to shift out the slots as well? Like, it's just really hard to try to set that pace or set that tone right now.
There's no easy answer.
Yeah, it's you got to try things. You got to support different regions. Oceanic has the opportunity to represent APAC North, APAC South, and then we see what happens from there. SA technically have 4 slots. Will they have 4 slots next year? Potentially not. Again, if another region comes in, right? If Valorant finally gets launched in China, as we were mentioning in chat now, what if China comes into the region, right? And we need to give a slot to China too. So what's
really interesting?
How do you spread that?
At the event, then the narrative's going to be super interesting, because your NA and your EMEA teams are going to feel much more like they're taking on the rest of the world, because they have the minority of slots. So it's going to be like the strongest guys, fighting off all the challengers.
That's it.
Pretty cool.
All David and Goliath
okay.
all the time, and then you're changing the narrative that we're the Davids now in NA and EU, because there's just so many Goliaths for so many teams.
Well, in NA, let's not be too fictional here. Come on.
Ben's just trying to sneak. He's just trying to sneak this past you, right? Like something about NA being decent. Just trying to see if you're like awake.
Look at all the events that we're fucking playing in Tier 2, man. EU is fucked.
Well,
the only thing they have is VRLs now, and you guys already that's a fucking issue.
I mean, in fairness, the VRL is a much more robust system than having to like hope that tournament organizers run third-party stuff. Like we were bitching about NA not getting a regionalized system like this, so I mean, we can't.
Well, now you got VRLs and teams can't play in them.
Well. All right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about VRL Spain. Now, I want to point out that these different VRL regions are actually administered by various tournament organizing entities. Now, VRL Spain is run by LVP, which is a tournament organizer that's quite prolific in the Spanish region, which is, as we know, is just a huge region for gaming. Obviously, and it's a huge region for Spanish-speaking language in general, right? And that can sequester it a little bit away from English speakers, which we've sort of seen. We've seen some of the biggest streamers on Twitch have their viewer base is Spanish, right? Spanish streamers, right? Just, the Grefg and stuff like that, just dominating. So there's a huge market there. I want to talk a little bit about what happened here, because this is something that we teased when we heard about this VRL, right? It's regionalized. I think there are some sort of residence requirements to compete in these or something similar. Let's talk about this, and let's talk about where this drama came from. Mitch, can you give it to us from the top?
All right. So, we're all doing these streams, these fun little streams throughout the week across a bunch of different days. Things are busy. There's a lot of games. VRLs are kicking off. All the qualifiers are on, and there's, 8 different VRLs happening. So it was hard to keep track of everything. But this one story kind of caught Tom's attention. He forwarded it on to me. A guy, Morphywell, who we had gotten a chance to see in, I think it was stage 2 open quals, was playing for a team called Lucky Boys. And they got our attention because we were doing, it was like our first time doing open qualifiers. We were just flicking through the teams trying to see if there was any unknown names worth covering. And we see this team is 5 Italians. And I've never seen an Italian pro FPS player. I did an Italian event once, so that's a lie. Everyone there was Italian. At an international event, never seen it. These players just don't exist. So we jump on, we have a look at these guys. They had a lot of potential. They played really good Valorant. We were super surprised. You can see some flaws there, but it was promise. These guys go on. Morphywell, anyways, ends up on this team called, I think it was Cyberground Gaming is who he was playing for. And they go into VRL Spain. Now, VRL Spain already had a controversial start because they, I think it's 10 slots, and they invited 9 teams. So there was only 1 slot that was open for people to come into. Now, VRL Spain is similar to EMEA. It's covering 3 separate countries: Spain, Italy, and Portugal. Those are the regions it's set up to represent. 9 of the teams invited were Spanish organizations, but from what I understand, the teams had very, very little Spanish representation for the most part, with a lot of them being like 1 Spaniard or 1 Portuguese player or so on. Now, when you go on and you take a look at how, the requirements weren't necessarily there for those guys that were being brought in. You go on to the qualifiers. Open qualifiers happen. Morphe and his team are playing. They're doing well. They're having a great time. They qualify for the closed qualifier. Some stuff happens with the org that they're with, and they get approached by a team. I believe at this point it would have been MKers that came to them. So this organization comes to them and says, hey guys, you guys are in the VRL Spain closed qualifier. We'll take you on as your new org. And they're a bigger org. It's a great opportunity for the players. The old org is fine with it. So Morphe and his team sign with this new organization. Well, lo and behold, LVP turn around to them and say, hey, unfortunately, your slot doesn't belong to you. The 5 players who earned it in the open qualifier. Actually, it belongs to your organization. And so they go to the old organization, and the org says, well, we're not looking to get a team. It's your slot. You earned it. So we'll just give it to you. LVP said no. That can't happen. You cannot give your slot or sell your slot or in any way transfer your slot to the team that earned the slot. It is yours. You will field the team. The organization, as far as I'm aware, did not field the team, and that was the end of that. Really fucking bizarre situation to turn around and essentially cancel what I believe was at the time the only remaining Italian team in the qualifier. They got rid of them going into the closed qualifier because they played for a different team. It's a really weird situation. I reached out to Morphe and spoke a bit with them about it at the time. A lot of it was done in haste because we were trying to get things changed so they could play in the qualifier, but sadly that didn't happen. VRL Spain is kicked off. It's been and went. It's happening, and they won't be a part of it, which is really bizarre. That they made that decision. And I'm just looking in here at the page, and I see the closed qualifiers, Cyberground versus I'm not sure what ended up happening with the organization, whether they ended up fielding a separate team or not. It looks like they did actually field a separate team.
Okay, so they actually managed to get another. So it wasn't like they continued without another team. They just cobbled one together,
just
right?
Got 5 players from Italy, and those guys played it. I guess it's such a strange situation, and it seems so avoidable. It is just obvious on paper when a team qualifies to your event. You can't kick that fucking 5 players that qualified and just put 5 other dudes in because, oh yeah, they're cyberenergysportsgaming.com.net. Like, what? It belongs to the players, dude. It belongs to the core 3, if anything. You can't replace a whole team. Like, what? Just throw me and my buddies in there because I play for this org now. That's absolutely ludicrous.
You are Italian, and you are like the VRL
Irish.
Spain.
I'm Vietnamese.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Oh, he's such a disaster.
And I'm dad. All right. VRL.
I wasn't trying to do an Irish accent there. I hope you. I'm sorry, Uber. We are derailing the show. Please do carry on.
So I was just saying, if you're Italian, you are eligible to play in the VRL Spain. That is your your region.
Yep.
So LVP's problem is what? The org is no longer Italian, or the org is no longer.
I even think the org was Italian. That's a guess, but I'm almost certain it was a bigger Italian org that picked them up. Either way, it was a bigger org.
It was like it had to be like 3 players from the same region or some shit. I can't remember.
What's the problem? What's the fucking problem?
They are 5 Italian players, anyways. It was very strange. I don't know why LVP made that choice. I sort of do, because they invited the 9 Spanish organizations in the first place, some of which did not even have a team, literally had not had a Valorant roster, but they were a Spanish org and so were invited. And So obviously, look, in the early stages, and I even think it might have been Morphe that asked me this way back when it was first announced that they were inviting the 9 teams. And I said, look, early stages, no one gives a shit about your VRL league. Nobody cares. It's tier 2. That's not what the majority of the community is invested in. So you have to bring in these orgs because they will get you viewers. It was the same in the Ignition events at the start. We had invite-only tournaments. We hated it for competitive integrity. Teams like Forza back in the day got invited to the Ignition events. They were dog shit, and I had to cast them so many times. It really pissed me off because there were teams that should have been there instead, like Noel Panky and stuff, who just didn't get an invite because they weren't signed to an org because it wouldn't get them exposure. Now, look, those things have to happen in the early days, but frankly, it comes to the point that it's a piss take if we're going to just bring, 5 random dudes into the team and go, hey, you play the qualifier instead because you'll play under the original name. I don't know. It's loyalty to the completely wrong entity, but also it's just unnecessary. I don't see the benefit of it at all. Why? Why would you want that for any reason? Just bizarre, especially when the other org was bigger again. Really weird. Really weird.
Okay. We have a thread, I think, from a guy called Utilux where he's talking about the representation in this region. Look, this is part of a bigger discussion, right? So this is the thread. It's like, this is the first time I've spoken out politely about the VRL Spain Rising. So here we go. First of all, the VRL only has 10 players from its official countries, which is Portugal, Spain, and Italy. The rest are from other countries. All right. Fair enough. So the full VRL Spain Rising team, for those wondering, it's like Team Queso, Movistar Riders, Koi, Team Heretics, Rebels, Giants, Arctic Gaming. That's, and a couple of other rosters, right? A lot of these are mixed. So Portugal's represented in 4 different teams. The Czech Republic, which belongs to the Eastern region, has as many players as Portugal. The Czech Republic is on the other side of Europe. Yes, thank you, Diogo. Italy has no represented players. See the below tweet, and that's because this Italian team lost their slot in the VRL Spain because LVP couldn't allow them to just take the slot, which is kind of mental. And then he sort of says he has a look through the qualifier which hands out 1 slot. There's 218 teams, over 1,000 players in that qualifier for the last spot. There's 4 Portuguese team, 1 team with a Portuguese player. There's a couple Italians. And it basically goes on to say, like, anyone who wants to tell me that Riot cares about Portugal and Italy as they watch this unfold and as they sort of don't do anything, this is lacks an underlying notion of what even is going on right now. Saying things like tournaments will appear or Riot has a plan doesn't really serve any purpose. This is really complex. But I mean, this has always been the case in Europe. Like, these teams rarely, there are some teams for sure, but quite often teams just mix and match in Europe, right? They communicate in a common language. The European Union exists for a reason. This is kind of what the idea was in the first place. Sorry, Britain. The whole point was that you have these regions that these borders are soft borders. People can move around relatively freely and they can communicate with one another. That's without waxing poetic, that was kind of the dream that was sold on this whole idea of a European Union. Now it's a problem because Riot is trying to regionalize these leagues, and I get it. Like, you want to have your leagues maybe geolocated to some degree and foster local talent, but that's not really happening. But I also don't know, guys, if that's also reasonable to expect to happen. I mean, how many different nationalities were on Team Alliance, for fuck's sake? I mean, you had an Irish player on that damn team.
Yeah.
Just to name one. There are some teams, I guess, like what Guild were all Swedish for a time at least.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really reasonable, I think, to expect like the player bases of these countries to form their own teams. And do we want to encourage this? It's not nationalism, obviously, but do we want to really encourage these teams to just try and be comprised of players that with the same nationality? Like, obviously,
I kind of enjoyed it. I know in terms of like competition, maybe it could like water down at some point where a mixed team of different countries could look better than like 5 of the same one. But I've always enjoyed the World Cyber Games competition. I've always enjoyed the ESWC competitions where World Cyber Games, you had to be 5 nationalists, right? You had to be 5 Koreans, 5 Canadians, 5 Americans. But at ESWC, you needed at least 3 players representing that country and then 2 from wherever, and then you could still compete under that country's banner. I think it's pretty cool, especially in a game like Valorant where all these agents coming out with like nationalism, like you know, you have agents from different countries. I think that's fucking pretty cool to represent that as well.
Yeah.
But I also, on the other end of the spectrum, also think about the competition, and not necessarily competitive integrity, but how it's actually, it could be very much more competitive if you're able to have that super team that you want from wherever you want to hail from.
So I agree with you, but I've got a retort of such fans. You know, you fucking called me out earlier, so I'm gonna call you.
Call me out,
now.
bro. Call me,
I'm
maybe.
not gonna say sorry first, though. So
You're a fucking asshole.
Working with Ian on this one, a little bit of an experiment, but I agree with you entirely. Core 3 team, having to be from Spain or from whatever region you're from, cool. Yeah, bring in 2 from outside, gives you the opportunity to boost your team up. You know, get your CNET or whatever into your VRL Ireland and just fucking win instantly. Or you can try to like actually get, you know, solid IGLs, whatever role you need. You can go elsewhere internationally, find them and bring them. That's fantastic. And a lot of these orgs like Koi and stuff, they've got the funds to do it. So it can boost the scene. It can bring your players into higher lights, and it's going to give your region something to look forward to, a LAN event, you know, at the end maybe, or at least the online competition and stuff. Problem is, I find it very hard to imagine myself in a scenario where like, hey, let's go to the Irish League where one player on every team is Irish. It doesn't really feel like it's an Irish league then, you know what I mean? And for VRL Spain, I'll give you an example. So if this is going to work, right, Ian, let's try our best. Pull up some of these rosters, right? Now, some of the rosters we've got, let's take a look. Let's go over to Rebels, right? Rebels Gaming, they were invited, you know, one of the invited teams here. Now, you know, they've got Johnny. Johnny's in there. Yeah, not a lot of other representation from the VRL Spain region for them. Let's check out Team Heretics. They're pretty good, right? They're obviously a famous Spanish organization, and they have actually got a coach. They've got 2 players as well. So this is one of the better teams.
You don't even have 5.
one of the better teams, you know, that we've got on offer. Listen, we're not worried about having 5 because then we talk about Bisons. Let's have a look at Bison Z Club. Just hover over that. Oh yeah, they haven't got a fucking team. They've got no fucking players. But don't worry, they've been invited ahead of the Italian team that wasn't allowed to compete because they changed organization. Anyways, let's move on to Team Queso. I bet they've got a good mix of Spanish. Queso, it's a real Spanish dish, isn't it? Yeah, not a lot going on in there either. 1 Portuguese player, and then 2 from the fucking UK. It's more of a UK team than it is actually.
Hey, they have a Spanish
team.
coach.
Movistar Riders.
UK?
I mean, I'll tell you what. I'm representing these guys. Movistar Riders are in there, and they've got McNuggets. These boys have got an Irishman on the team, and that's all I need to know. It's Connor, my man, my main man. But as you can see there, not a lot. You know, VRL Spain. If you were to hover through that team list, maybe off the team names, you'd guess it was Spain, but off the player list, you certainly wouldn't.
What's the point in having these regions? Like, I'm seeing Spanish players. I'm seeing fucking. I saw a Bulgarian player in there for fuck's sake.
So
Czech player, UK players, Greek player. What's the point in having these regions then? Like, because obviously they're not saying you have to have at least 3 players from this region. Otherwise, none of the teams would be fucking eligible.
But see, this is where I think VRLs are actually quite cool. And like, okay, so I know I talked about WCG. I loved the competition back then. I love how ESWC was back then. But let's look at the reality of how things are in Valorant right now, where you don't have these super teams of just like cracked out 5 players from one country, maybe Vision Strikers or whatnot, you know. But what I like about what's going on with VLRs, I'm fucking confused with VRLs. There you go. So it's actually to just continue to feed the ecosystem of what's going to happen if you can't qualify through VCTs, right? Because the issue right now, for example, with North America is that if you don't qualify in Open Qualifiers number 1 or Open Qualifiers number 2, what's left for you going into the rest of Masters? And do you have any better chances of making it into Masters 2 or not? While in Europe, you now have this relegation portion that if you don't make it that far enough during the European Challengers, you might get relegated to the bottom. To the people in the VRLs could actually get promoted. they could actually get promoted right after, right? So I think that's pretty cool in a sense of like that tier 2 scene that we're talking about in NA that everybody gets to play, but the people that win the tier 2 events, you don't really get much out of it to boost up into the tier 1 scene, right? Well, for example, in Europe, you have that opportunity to play this tier 2 event and still make it back into the VCT circuit.
In NA, you have the opportunity to play this tier 2 event. It's called the VCT circuit. But anyways.
Oh my god, man. Fuck you. But yeah,
look,
I think in the end it's still pretty cool. I think that's why we have these regions, is because you have players and teams that could still play. Like Heretics could still have a roster and potentially not have to like leave the scene because they have inactivity in the VCTs for like the next fucking 6 months.
They don't have to leave the scene. Like, but what I'm asking is like, why do you need to why regionalize this? Why don't you just have 8 divisions? I just have 8 VRL divisions that are not tied to regions at all, and then have them play within their own divisions. You know what I mean? Like, what is the point of geolocating this when it's not actually geolocated? It's only in name. You know, you could call one Gryffindor and one fucking Hufflepuff. Like, it doesn't matter.
That's
You know what I
copyright.
mean? That's my only issue. Is that like you're giving the impression that, right, like there's some significance about these regions, and I think this is supposed to at least encourage teams to form up with people from their region. But it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Is my only issue.
I mean, there must be more Spanish players in one of the other VRLs than in VRL Spain. I feel like I'm gonna go look. If that's true, I will laugh my ass off. Like that would.
I think it's just nomenclature, right? Is that how you say it in English?
Yeah, nomenclature. Yeah.
Nomenclature, because it's just like if you're watching hockey, it's like Atlantic Division and then whatever Pacific Division or whatnot, and it's just going to be that, but just country names instead.
But I do think that this is a uniquely LVP problem. To be clear, I don't think this is every VRL. I think this is VRL Spain. When I look at VRL France, vast majority of the teams in that are full French or Belgian French. Like, look, the French scene is what it is. Maybe I've picked a bad example, but they don't tend to go far outside themselves anyways. But it could be done so much better. And any purpose that you can turn to me and tell me, oh, this is what VRL is for, it's almost defeated by the point that it's going to be so open. And look, I understand that if it was 3 out of 5 Spanish, well, then you're cutting off a lot of opportunities for those teams that are in VCT and that want to make it up. And I agree with that. Why not then have 4 vague leagues and 4 major leagues? Like you get your Spain, your DAC, whatever your 4 major regions are, and then just have kind of like East, West, North, South kind of thing, you know? Like it's a much more open to interpretation, much more mixed match, or even just open ones entirely. Yeah, just an EMEA, 4 EMEA ones for the crack. I don't know. There's many different scenarios. Whatever one led to this LVP one, and especially with the whole the situation with the Italian team and what happened to them being kicked out because of some weird sense of loyalty to the org, I guess, even though the org didn't want it. And then you turn around in your actual main league and you barely have anybody representing your region itself. Really mind-boggling when I think about it.
Yeah, it's actually just mental. Like it doesn't make any sense. So I mean, fucking LVP, sort your shit out. To be honest, if NA had a VRL, it would be split into people that think Black Clover is a good anime and people that don't, or people that have Killua as their like pre-game GIF, or some shit from Berserk. That's how we'd actually make that demarcation. I think that's already
probably a better system.
I also mentioned that J Rush in chat is saying that VRL Eastern Europe did it well. They specifically invited teams who are from developing sub-regions, even if they weren't very good. And then they had 4 open qualifier slots. So at least there is like a significant portion of it is they're making sure that they are handpicking, you know, teams that exemplify the geolocation that you're trying to achieve. And then you're having, you know, 4 open qualifier slots is pretty generous, right? I wonder like what the entry requirements were, if there was any like citizenship requirement for that region, but still, I mean, that's like a happy medium. Let's move on. Let's talk about our last block of the show here, because it's a bit of it's not a hill turn, but it's a little bit of a change in direction from Riot about Valorant, right? We're over a year into the game now. You know, we've covered a lot of ground. A lot of agents have come out, new maps, a lot of content, and it's had the impact of causing a little bit of chaos in the competitive scene, which is what happens when you have a game that's rapidly changing. Fucking NFL hasn't changed for years. Hockey has not changed for years, right? People can settle into it. This is unique. It's something that esports does. Let's hear a little bit from Anna Donlan, I think, specifically talking about some of the developer mindset going into this year, because I think it's really important to influence our expectations from Riot in the coming months. So take it away, Anna.
But you know what? Dreams like ours should be built on a super strong foundation, and that is going to be the overall theme of Act 2, strengthening that foundation. We'll be dedicating that act to the overall health of our game. So what does that mean? Well, first, and let's get it out of the way, there will be no new agent or map in Act 2. Instead, lots and lots of updates that target agent balance, existing maps, promoting good player behavior, an even better ranked experience, things like that. Here's the thing, sometimes you need to just take a minute. You need to take a look around and make sure things are the way they should be. And that's what we're doing for this act.
Okay, so, straight out there, Anna says, look, don't expect new agents, don't expect new maps right now. We're using this act, right? So it's not this whole year, excuse me. It's what, the 3 months or however long an act is, to sit down, consolidate, and to try and trim up some of the edges that have obviously grown a little bit dense with all the changes that are happening. Let's get your reactions from this, guys. I'd love to know what your initial thoughts are.
Well, let's take a look at what we've been told for years now. You know, we had a consistent flow of, you had 6 agents, 2 maps. That was your yearly rotation. That was what we always fell back to, because that's what Riot had told us, the last information we had. But now the first breach from that protocol, where we're going to have I'd imagine 3 months without anything, right? Because the first act saying it's 2 months or so, and then another probably portion of the next act where you're not going to have that agent or map released for a little bit as they get teased up and then get brought out, unless it's going to be brought out right at the start. So it's going to be a decent chunk of time where teams really get to work on the fundamentals. And I think this is a super healthy thing for the game, to have this little bit of a break in downtime, not just for players to have a little bit of a pace change in general, for their own sake, but also just so they can collect themselves, refine any strategies, and then the game can also be tweaked slightly here and there to help along the way. It might not be the most exciting, as in we're not going to have a new map, but we're probably going to have maps coming out of the next 2 months that look very different and are worth more than a new map, really.
Well, that's where I agree too. I think this is a great thing, because you're kind of scaling things back for a bit, where you're also already scaled back the VCT circuit for 2022, right? Instead of having 3 masters, you have 2 masters. And I think now that you're trying to time this into be like, okay, we have now an act where we're not going to have anything, let's say for 2 months or 3 months. Well, what's happening during the next 2 months or 3 months? It's actually the road to Masters 1, where therefore no new agent's going to come out, no new map's going to come out, where players are going to be like, oh, we only have like 2 weeks of practice here and there. It's not going to be in this qualifier, but it's going to be at this qualifier, or it's going to be a Masters, and then that's just going to fucking change everything. I think this gives a lot of room to breathe for everybody to like just work on the main meta of what's going on right now, and then with any map changes that may happen, right? What I like about this too is, like, when she said there's not going to be any new maps and any new agents, but we might be revisiting other maps, I was like, please fucking let's have some changes in fucking Icebox, because they've done it for Breeze already, and I've been a strong advocate of saying, like, these Breeze and Icebox, when it's a must pick to have a Viper that splits a map to fucking get an exit in. It's kind of boring to watch. And I think that's a strong sentiment from a lot of these players, and I'm hoping to see these changes come.
You know,
I mean,
sorry, go ahead, Uber.
No, I was just going to say, I think any, I understand there's like a real demand for content all the time. Trust me, I come from the fucking Overwatch community, right? I know what it's like to fucking starve for just a little bit of content, just
a little bit teasing beta Overwatch 2-3
yeah,
weeks,
but I think this is fuck me. I think this is obviously really important. Look, if you want to ensure the longevity of your game, going back and doing housekeeping like this is really important. Comes up in the chat. Viper says, like, I feel like this might have been better around like Champions, because releasing a new agent or map would screw things up or have some disconnect between live and competitive servers. So what do you guys think? Like, do you think the timing of this should be this sort of break in adding content should come maybe during these more, busy competitive periods of the year, or is this a good time for it?
I think
this first act,
we might just be slowing down in general, to be honest. And I feel like we almost have to. Like, at the start, you have to remember, Valorant had 2-3 maps. We had like nothing, dude. We had barely any agents. It definitely no flexibility and depth beyond switching roles. You wouldn't usually even be swapping agents to do the same, right? Having Astra, having your Killjoys, all these agents added so much to the game. And now we're at a point where, like, we were probably a little bit too basic when we started out. There wasn't that much that you could do different, but we were figuring out the maps. We were figuring out the economy. We were figuring all that out, so it was fine. But they had to add all these agents and maps in to make it more complicated. Now we can do best of fives. Now we can maybe even start to entertain the idea of agent select being altered in some way or another. And it's a little bit scary to have all that happen so quickly. You enter into a full 7-map veto system. You enter into agent select. You enter into like all these other things that are going to happen, and more agents are coming out and it's bombarding you. So I think that now that we're at a point where we're quite complicated, there's a lot of depth there. Working on the game makes sense, and maybe moving forward, slowing it down a little bit to keep pace with these events so that you don't have a map coming out right before an event or in the middle of an event. And it's perfectly timed so these teams have got time to prepare, so the community has time to learn these maps as well, and then we could roll into the Masters and Champions with everybody on their A game. I think this year is going to be a pace change, not just at the start. I think it's going to carry all the way through.
Because with all the agents that we have so far as well, there are some agents that are not picked at all anymore, right?
Very
Phoenix,
true.
barely see him. Yoru, barely see him. Brimstone, maybe on Bind and Split. Omen, we miss him, right? Bring back the Broman.
Oh, yeah.
So I think now that you have these 7 maps that people seem to be very happy about, with the exception for me for a couple, but they're people are happy with the maps. We have exactly that. We have a map veto process that could be clean, that allows good BO3s, and then you now have what, 16 agents that you could actually start tweaking a little bit more to have an overall balance between, hey, if I could pick Phoenix more, is it going to break the other agents that are currently out? If I could add, let's say, Global Smokes or Brimstone, is that going to break the game? And then you could start testing that out to polish up the game with the agents so far and how the maps are being played, to then go on to the next level, be like, okay, we're satisfied where the game is so far. Let's try to sprinkle in a little bit more new agent changes on map, a new map, whatever. And I think it's a great it's a great moment right now to slow things down, to actually reevaluate that.
Okay. So then, what's on your wish list then? Let's start for agents. What is on your wish list? Top of the list for agent elements that need balancing right now.
Okay, right. So we're coming straight off the bat with that. I think Breach is in a really good spot. Yoru's rework still needs to be sort of felt out a little bit, but consensus has been not that great. But I think that I want to see Phoenix with a little bit of a buff up. I want to see him a little bit more present in the pool, let's say, because he was someone that even from day one of Valorant, I hated seeing teams pick. Now, like the likes of Sick and stuff, can kind of make him work, but it's just like he can do a little bit more in there. The main thing for me is maps. Map changes have to come through because some of it feels tough. Attack side bind is one of the hardest things I've had to go through, and I had 3 back-to-back games where I lost 13-15. I mean, it has been a journey. Please make it easier for me.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to see maybe a nerf for Phoenix to be played more. I think there should be a buff into Phoenix or a nerf into Astra, because the way that Phoenix is being played with this kit is that if I have to flash, I have to literally be around the corner. So if I feel that an exec's coming in very soon on the defender side, and the Phoenix is going to be around the corner getting ready to flash for somebody, I could just pull a gravity well, pull the Phoenix out of the corner, and then just shoot him down. Or just a run it back. He goes with a running back trying to clear space. Gravity well, Nova Pulse. You're fucked. The Phoenix ult has been canceled, right? So I think so it's either or one of those two to figure out. Maybe that's how Phoenix can get picked a little bit more. I think controllers right now, and especially talking about Astra, I think Astra is a must pick because she could just place smokes everywhere across the map. So if we're going to allow to maybe increase the range of what Brimstone could do with his smokes, is his stim pack good enough as well? What do we need to have Brimstone be picked more? And I think it's that range of how he could place his smoke, so he doesn't have to always be that close to his team. Is definitely gonna help. And I think lastly for Omen, I think his TP is pretty chill in terms of like the shrouded step. But when it comes down to the from the shadows, cool for picking up Spike here and there, but it's just Astra's too strong to give up on that agent to not have Omen and Brimstone being used. I mean, look at them; they're at the fucking bottom of the agent map picks or agent picks. Sorry, in VLR for like the last what? This is 90 days, 60 days.
Yeah, this is Champions.
Champions. Okay, yeah, pretty crazy. So
Does,
0% on Phoenix. When you said that that sick played Phoenix very well on Haven, and he didn't even get picked on Haven, then boom. It shows how much the other agents right now, how much Astra and Viper are like really needed, and KO even into this, and Sky of course into this new meta.
Why have you guys not mentioned anything about Jet? Looking at this, is there not a problem here? Do you think?
I'm not
I
sure
mean, she's
that
always
I
gonna skip it.
want Jet to leave. Like,
Okay.
I feel like Jet is so important to Valorant right now, and how like it would change the identity of the game so much if you nerfed her to the point that it was impactful. Because the only thing, at least from my perspective, the only thing that I can see that really fixes a lot of her problems is getting rid of her dash, or nerfing it to the point that you cannot hold an
Use her
angle and
anymore.
immediately get away. And then, well, then what the fuck's the point of this agent? If you take that away, why? Unless you make it, well, see, even if you make it so that she's like Chamber, she can take damage at the start of the dash or whatever, well, again, you're making her irrelevant then, to the point that you're going to nerf her to a Phoenix. So then we're going to have the problem again of trying to bring her back, and you'll never, if you get rid of the dash, you will never get it back. You cannot put that back in the game. Community will
And honestly,
fucking lose its mind.
as a spectator, I
so-
kind of fucking love watching Jet. To be
Yeah,
honest.
right? It's iconic. It's a
Yeah.
part of Valorant's identity. I think getting rid of Jet's dash would just it's not feasible.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do it, but I don't see a world in which they'll ever nerf it without it going too far. So I think she's just here to stay. Something you always have to account for, and that's where a lot of the value for a drone and for having a trailblazer and all these sort of things really come into the game.
It's one of those it is what it is political excuses that
Yeah.
I could accept really, really quickly. You know, it's
Okay.
not that bad.
All right, then what about maps? Let's talk about, like off the top, one or two things
Icebox.
in maps that are bothering you. What about it though? What about Icebox?
It's become very, very stale
Formulaic.
in terms of how you're trying to execute into these sites, right? Like I said, Viper is a must pick. Have we actually had any games so far recently where Viper is not picked? Very, very, very rarely. Very rarely, right? If not, and it's just like when you're splitting across the map, it's just like, okay, well, now it's walled off. Nobody's really playing any flashes to counter that because, for example, what's the main agent composition that you always see right now in fucking Icebox, right? There's some changes here and there these days, but the main one that's like easy peasy to play, Reyna, Jet, Viper, Sova, and Sage. So if I'm already going to throw a fucking Viper wall across a map, and on the defender side, I don't really have like a flash to underhand to throw across the Viper wall to fight back. It's kind of like one of those, let's let them plant, delay a bit with some utility onto the default spot. Once all that utility is burned, okay, they're going to try to replant. And then now that it's planted, let's play the pulse plant. Where is it going to be at? Fucking yellow, green, whatever it is. Pulse plant all the way back towards belt. Plant it for belt side. There's like always one, there's like, the map is so big on the site that the majority, like 90% of the plants are in one fucking spot. The same fucking spot. The same fucking spot. But you can plant anywhere around this fucking map, but there's one fucking spot that you plant the most, right? And it's, you got to find some way to like blow those sites up to add that variety of like planting in different places, which is why I do commend some teams that are doing like these mid to B splits here and there that are like fucking putting these walls up and putting Sage walls to plant towards B side at mid. Cool. But it still makes like the post plant very, very hard to play on the attacker side too. So I'm looking forward to it. It looks like we might see this. Some change.
So for
We.
the audio
Chez
for
Belle.
audio viewers, listeners, rather, excuse me. Basically, yellow on Icebox on that attacking side is being tilted about 45 degrees. So it's at a slant, and they're actually wanting to sort of orient that yellow container north
Looking
to
straight
south.
to Snowman. Yeah,
Right.
it seems as though like vertically into the map. Yeah.
Yeah. This is floxay, FLOXAYYY on Twitter. You can find that there. What does this materially change about attacking on this map or the post-plant situation on Icebox? This tilting of the box.
Makes it so much easier for a team to retake back onto the site. You're
Yep.
playing, if you plant in the default spot where you normally would with a Sage wall, you play back yellow. Well, imagine a player coming up from Snowman. When they push that and they swing right, because it's a straight angle, they've cleared the entirety of back yellow now. They don't need to peek down the alley on B long. Like you used to be able to tuck up on it, right? Or maybe play the backside. Now there's going to be a very finite, the width of the yellow box. That's the only place they won't know about. Shock dart, snake bite, anything like that down there, you're out of position. You're taken down. Their whole team's staring at you anyways. And your teammates in alley are going to have to peek. So it's going to put a lot more pressure on guys coming through mid flanks and alternative plant spots. Actually looking at taking the site, splitting through mid and taking control deep, planting in there, or maybe just going to the other side of the map altogether.
Sure.
It's going to have a pretty huge impact, I think.
Yeah. I'm sure there's more changes to that, and we're seeing only one part of it for now. But like the simplest thing, if it's not shock darts or snake bites, looking at that spot itself, right? How narrow that angle is just think about a fucking Hunter's Fury. If you have a Hunter's Fury that's available and you have a Viper Wall that's up on defense, you're throwing your your Hunter's Fury, into safety from Snowman, those guys at yellow are fucked. You can't really do anything. So then understanding that, if you're going to be a team that says, oh shit, the defenders have a Hunter's Fury, where do you think they're going to play? Everybody's going to play towards green. So if everybody's going to play towards green and they're playing lineup Larrys with Viper snake bites and shock darts into a spike plant, then it doesn't really bring a real solution yet into the changes of Icebox of how it's currently being played.
Okay. There were some patch notes today that came out. Nothing that was too extensive, I don't think. I don't know if we necessarily expected all that much here. Vance, you got a point.
Well, no, I just wanted to add something else too, because we saw the boxes that are there now, but there are some more changes actually to Icebox as well, right? So like there is going to be a B site rework from other screenshot leaks that came out today, right? So like the B site seems to have like a little like nook at the bottom, so you don't have to get sprayed by Heaven Side on B, for example. Here you go. The changes that you can see that are written now. We can read them out.
Not everyone can see them, just so you know. We have listeners.
Yeah, that's it. So then half box on A. So the robot changed into a full box, which I'm assuming is going to be the right side back of the map. The double box on B got added, or potentially the current metal one was moved. The ramp is smaller, and I'm assuming this is now a ramp, or maybe boiler ramp. A screen door is smaller. Okay. And then the kitchen table angle slightly changed, so that's in. So now you're also promoting mid control, which is cool. Let's see how that changes things. And B garage is now an S shape. Oh shit. Okay, S shape sounds interesting.
Right.
That's the entrance of B site.
Yes. So that aside, I'm curious to see what they actually look like. We'll try and see some.
It's like this, Mitch. I know you're trying to do a finger of what an S looks like. It's
you can't go right side, I guess. Right? They just block the right side, or they
there
put
are
one of
just
those.
too many layers of abstraction here. I'm a kinesthetic learner, I need to experience this.
Yeah.
All right. So for audio listeners, we've got something that.
Yeah, explain that. Good luck.
Yeah. Okay.
Mark the two exits with green. So this seems to be.
No, this is behind. This is
A
behind
site,
kitchen.
right?
No. This is
this is
kitchen
two?
ramp.
I have no idea where we are right now, boys. This is a messy screenshot. My God.
So
It was
like
being drawn on
as
this
you walk in the
paint.
kitchen on defender side, right? That causeway underneath you. That's garage, yeah. That's B garage.
So this is B main. This is B main. This is B main. Yeah. So this is B main. So you're looking at top left of the screen is attacker spawn side.
Obviously,
You head into that entrance. You still have the L shape that's still there, and what's on the right side are the green boxes heading into B. So the huge thing that's hashed out into red. I wonder if you eliminate all that, because if you look at the entrance of where the exit, right? So the bottom green spray, it's where you're coming out from the S. Where therefore in the past it would have been just a fucking wall. So now I think you're blowing up that whole side, therefore really opening up the B site on top of that. I think that's pretty fucking cool. If that's the possibility of what we could see there, I think that's pretty cool.
Right. It's a little abstract right now.
I mean, I love Picasso, so I saw that what it looked like.
Yeah,
sure.
brilliant. So someone actually, this same Twitter account, by the way, this floxay account, had a video that like highlighted the changes here in red.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
So this is, I mean, that pipe walk up is quite interesting. Also, yeah, I see. Okay, so this is on the attacker's side. Wow.
Yeah. And you're coming out.
Interesting.
Okay, so you're still coming out the same place. You're still coming out the same place.
Can't you get past Viper Wall in that sense then, potentially?
Not yet.
Someone like throws the wall down that you have to cross?
Oh, yes, you can. Okay, so
Yeah.
there's another entrance into green. So you've opened up not only one way to really fight into like green side control, you've actually added another exit out of it, which is pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's dope. All right. Okay. Well, we'll wait till we actually get screenshots of that in reality.
I can't wait. Is that coming out next
Well-
week? Let's start tweeting out right now. We want it next week.
Okay, yeah, go hit up your mate New on Twitter. Ask Marcus to do it for you. There was patch notes today. There were little changes. I don't think there was anything overly significant. A couple things like latency of like windowed mode or windowed full screen as opposed to full screen is one of the things that was sort of pointed out there. So a couple things here and there, but yeah, nothing huge, nothing to write home about. There was a cool new skin announced, obviously for the Lunar New Year celebration. But here's your
Yeah.
patch notes again. So
Magnamoy?
yeah, same. Couple things to point out here. There's like a cosmetic bug with the Spectrum Z logo. Killjoy's alarm bot on turret. These are just bug fixes.
Yeah.
It's a very small patch. There's like an AFK detection buff, so like they've apparently sort of beefed up their ability to sort of tell when someone is just inting AFK. But of course they'll get kicked from the game. You're still going to get handed a fat L even after they're sort of kicked out. So I guess brilliant. Yeah, new skins. Tigress, I suppose, is how I should announce it here in honor of the Lunar New Year, I suppose.
Yep.
They look nice. Obviously, the tiger logo, though, I'm pretty sure we saw it on like the Prime bundle, right? It was like one of
This
them
is
was
also
a
Year of
ball.
the Tiger as well, which is why they're theming it that way too. So it's pretty dope. I'm updating Valorant right now so I could go buy it.
Yeah, it's like double falchions by the looks of things
Yeah.
as the melee weapon, which is or maybe it's only single, but it's still pretty nice looking.
And I think there was, if you're looking into the game in itself, there was some screenshots that came out. So there's probably even like an event battle pass for the
Yeah, like there was for
Yeah, there's a
Arcane.
free-
Yeah,
they said it
so
would
it's
be
gonna
free.
pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Pretty cool.
I'm updating to play that after
Alright.
Minesweeper.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Minesweeper first, of course. Quickly as well, tomorrow we're going to be back here on the channel, 1 p.m. PTs when we kick off with the breakdown, which is me and Sir Scoots. Kind of like Valoranting, except it's more broad, talking about the industry as a whole. Never a shortage of stuff to talk about on this particular show. So 12 p.m. Pacific, excuse me. Twitch.tv/DNP. So right here, I guess if you've already found us. We do have obviously the breakdown over on YouTube as well. YouTube.com. I think it's /breakdown. I think we have our own channel for that. But yeah, me and Scott, we are going to be talking to Hector Rodriguez, otherwise known as Hex, previously of Optic, now of Pine Park and other esports sort of fame. So it'd be great to have a chance to chat with one of the OGs of esports. Yeah. Obviously, been chatting to these two fuckers, doesn't quite compare. So stick around and we'll see how that goes down tomorrow. Fans, Mitch, always a pleasure, gentlemen. Have you got it out of your
Likewise.
system, guys? Have you done that? Have you got your ranting done for a week?
I think I did better this week. I did better this week.
Better because you challenged Mitch on something?
No, I think I molded more on like map stuff and more than molding at people.
Oh,
I
so
still kinda
less
mold at
molding,
people.
in your opinion, is better. Is that what you're saying?
No, I molded more. I molded more,
Okay.
but just not on people.
Right.
Which I
so
never do. So I was able to
molding
mold onto
at
something
people
else.
is bad. Is that what you're saying?
It's not necessarily bad. I just can't do it.
Right. Well, it's been good having you on the show, man. Yeah. Good luck in your next endeavors, man.
Thanks,
Mitch,
man.
good to have you here, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Pleasure as always.
Next week, 11 a.m. PT, Tuesday. We've got much more to talk about, of course, more NA shenanigans. I mean, the drama, I'm sure, is going to keep coming, and we're going to keep our eye on what's going on the VRL leagues over in Europe. Until then, everybody, take care. See you tomorrow here, 12 p.m. PT for The Breakdown. You don't want to miss that show. We've got a lot lined up, including that Hex interview. See you tomorrow.